welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Question of the day. This one apparently is just for me, so I'll let you ask it.
Yeah, this was in the text thread somewhere at some point. And I, as always, cannot remember why.
Yeah.
I think this was a
Cocaine's a hell of a
good...
drug.
Stop it. This, I think, was a good... I said this to Rachel or Mara recently in the chat. I was like, we need to start including, please, we need to start including like a screenshot of when this comes up.
Who this is attributable to?
Right, because this is all my fault. Like, this all comes down to me and flaws with myself. But by the time we get to them, whatever cocaine thought I had, a joke, Mom, it's a joke, is fleeting.
I could be in cocaine.
Fleeting
she doesn't know that.
That's not a smoothie.
No.
This is fun.
The cocaine these days is turning awfully purple.
Liquid.
Yeah.
It's like Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly.
Anyway, I don't know how this came up, but rank who gets the most excited when a pregnancy is announced.
Yeah.
The options are mom of baby, dad of baby, grandma of baby on mom's side, grandpa on baby of mom's side, grandma of baby on dad's side, grandpa of baby on dad's side, and then in the text we had also added siblings.
Yeah.
Sibling of choice.
Okay. So I could potentially get in trouble for power ranking the responses in my particular circumstance.
I think that was part of the excitement for this.
So I'm going to speak more in generalities than actually giving the exact power ranking.
I want you to be honest and then say it's generalities.
Yeah, well, I'll do that. I'm always honest, to a fault. But I can say with great certainty that the maternal side of the family was certainly way more excited than the dudes. Between my mom and Jenna's mom, there was quite a bit of screaming. This was during COVID, so we didn't get to present the information in person to Jenna's side of the family. My family lives out here. But both my mom... I should include the video in the show notes because it is comical.
I don't think I've seen it.
I'm biased, but the video is very funny. We announced it at a Mother's Day brunch with my family.
That's selfish.
And both my mom and my sister lost their shit, and my dad was happy, but like at a different decibel.
Like a dad happy.
Yeah, exactly. We actually, I think you can get the exact answer to this question because Jenna posted a video. This was like our announcement video of our family's reaction to our pregnancy with Leo, and you can see everybody's reaction, but I think Jenna's dad was something to the effect of like, oh no, and then he started to laugh. But I think his initial reaction was the honest reaction, which reminds me of a very funny story. When I was telling people that we were pregnant with twins, everybody gives like the requisite, like, oh my God, that's amazing, blah, 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 blah.
And then it trails off into fear.
Most people were just presented the positive side, as you should, even if it's not true. However, my neighbor, we'll call him Jay, who I like very much, I broke the news to him. It was like out taking the trash out or something like that, and I just bumped into him. I told him, like, we're pregnant. He's like, oh, that's awesome, man. I'm like, with twins. And he goes like this. For those who are listening, it's the showing of the teeth. Yeah, the
that in the face.
The shock and horror look. It's the emoji. Yeah, the giant teeth grinning emoji.
Yeah.
I don't know what
it's the sympathy card face.
Yeah. So I think his reaction was probably the most accurate of any reaction that I got. But yeah, we veered heavily off course here. But long story short, the family gets, I think, more excited than the people in it because they're accurately predicting how challenging it'll be, and it's very easy to be excited for somebody when you don't have to deal with a screaming baby at 2 a.m. Not to say we weren't excited. We were obviously, none of these kids were an accident. But once the reality sets in...
Wouldn't you say one of the twins was an accident?
One of them was a bonus.
Okay.
Yeah. All of the sex was planned. Intentionally not protected. But another one of those guys just slipped in there.
I do wonder that sometimes. I'm like, at what point is Zach going to get so attached to his kids that my off-color jokes are going to start to be offensive?
No. If kids strips the humor from my life, then that's when you know I've reached my bottom depth. It's not.
I mean, you have to reach your bottom depth at some point.
Yeah. I think we're getting a call from our guest, so Let's hit the pause button. We are joined by the Daley family. That is Marketa and David. and Sequoia, age 6, Joshua, 4.5, and Standa, in studio with us, 3. The Daleys hiked 1,300 miles on the PCT in 2022 and more than 250 miles on the AT this year, 2023. Marketa and David have been hiking with their kids since their oldest, Sequoia, was an infant, and now their children have more miles under their feet than many adults. That is probably a massive understatement. Daley family, thank you so much for joining us here at Backpacker Radio.
Yeah, no problem.
You guys were very highly requested, so you're doing something right in the internet sphere. So kudos. Very excited to hear more about this. As we chatted a little bit beforehand, selfishly, I've got 3 youngsters at home, and getting them to enjoy the outdoors has been a challenge. So I will have a lot of selfishly aimed questions for you today. Let's start off with, does everyone in the family have trail names?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am Midnight Rider. Not Rider, but Writer, as in like writing.
Yeah, I'm Shepherd, changed from last year to Shepherd this year.
What about the kiddos?
Standa is Kerplunk, Sequoia is Ketchup, and Joshua, I guess, is Sticky Hands.
Sticky
His
Hands?
changes quite a bit.
Yeah. Can we get some stories to the names?
Well, Standa was throwing a rock, and a hiker was walking by and just said, like, oh, he's Kerplunk, and we just...
Because of the sound of the rock.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we stuck with that. The kids really liked it. And
perfect.
Sequoia, I mean, she's obsessed with ketchup. She'll suck it out of a straw. Yeah, it's like her passion, passion food. And then Joshua, his hands are sticky a lot from food,
always.
and lots of comments about that. And I held hands with him, so I would kind of prompt him to hike on the PCT, like, okay, hands. And so it was kind of fitting, like, oh, sticky hands. Yeah.
And can I ask how old you guys are? Either you've got the best skincare routine of all time, or you're younger than I was anticipating.
I'm 32 and 32.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're both 32.
So both. Good job. So I don't want to take all the love questions. I'll lay that up to Chance.
Leave the love for me.
Yeah. This is Chance's department.
But before we go into the love, I guess, should we start with the love?
We can do whatever we want, Chance. The world's our oyster.
How did you two get into backpacking? Because you guys probably had to be pretty into it to, like, start with kids. Because Zach is pretty into it, and you just heard him trying to get his kids into it.
Yeah.
How did you guys find that?
Oh, well, I grew up in a town where the PCT goes through, a little town of Wrightwood. And so I was not really backpacking growing up. I was just kind of like hiking up the side of the mountain when we felt like it. And then eventually later that led to joining the California Conservation Corps, and then started doing trail work, backpacking a bunch. And that's how me and Marketa met. But she's been doing it her whole life with her parents, so she can speak to
I
that.
was lucky. I mean, my parents, we when we moved to America, we always felt like, oh, we're gonna have to leave, so we got to see everything and go everywhere. And so every chance we got, our family would go out and backpack and stuff. And then I became then I started doing trail work, and that's where David and I met. And like 2 years prior, I had thru-hiked the PCT, and I was telling David, like, oh, we got to do that. And yeah, for some reason every year we kind of made an excuse, like, this is not a good year. And yeah, who knows why we thought, like, oh, now we have 3 kids, now is the good time to do it. I don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt right to finally just try.
Yeah. And we'll set the stage here. So Sequoia and Joshua couldn't make it to the interview today, but we do have Standa in studio. So if you hear a little background noise, that's what happens with the family interviews, and that's what makes it fun. So.
Yeah, totally.
Where did you move to America from, and how come you came?
We moved when I was 8, around 8. Yeah, and what was the other?
Like, what brought you here?
My dad found work. Yeah, and it it just made sense for all of us to move here. Yeah.
Sorry, miss, where did you move from?
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Was it California, like close to Wrightwood too, nearby the trail?
Monterey Bay.
Okay.
That's where we moved to. Yeah.
Cool.
And I heard you speaking another language with Standa here. Is that Czech that you're speaking?
Yeah. So we live with my parents, and so we're so lucky. They have really instilled the culture and language, and it's been really, really easy to keep it up and teach it to them. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest differences between the Czech culture versus the U.S.?
Oh gosh, that's not a good question for me. I have no idea. Oh my gosh, I feel like it's I can't just clump. Yeah.
Or is there like one characteristic of the Czech culture that stands out to you? Well, is that an easier way?
I do think that Czech people are really outdoorsy. I feel like I'm always amazed at how many Czech people I see and meet out in like national parks and stuff. Like, yeah, maybe it's because I'm Czech and I'm aware of that, but it just seems like a really incredible number. And I've heard many people say that, so maybe that's true. But I feel like Americans are also outdoorsy. Just depends who you're. Yeah.
Yeah, different geographies, I would say.
Yeah.
Adhere to that standard more than others, but yeah. Yeah, I've been to Prague before. It's a beautiful city.
Nice.
Just to derail this with my own personal stuff.
Yeah, Zach, tell us about your youth.
Yes.
What was it?
When I studied abroad.
It's not about you. What was it like growing up in Wrightwood in a PCT town? Like, from the perspective of someone who sees the transformation during the summer of it becoming like a stopover spot, a resupply spot, and just hikers coming in and getting really busy.
It was really cool. We had a really good friend. There's a big group of us, like 12 of us. We all grew up together, and my friend's house we used to all stay at. And so then we'd like take in PCT hikers, and one specifically that stayed for a while and became like a lifelong friend of his mother and the family. And yeah, it was just really cool seeing the transition. Usually it's extremely boring in the summer there, so you're just skating, doing whatever, biking, and then during the winter time it's a snowboard resort or ski resort town, so it's really popular for Southern California. So yeah, it was really neat, and I always wanted to do it. I don't know why I didn't try it when I was younger. I guess my head wasn't really like there. Like, I wanted to do it, but I never attempted to make it happen, I guess. And so, yeah. So
you've had a really good front row seat to the evolution of the culture on the PCT, because I imagine that when you saw hikers coming through many years ago, it wasn't like it is today.
No.
Was there like did you notice a turning point with the popularity of wild, or was it a more gradual thing?
I think wild did a huge boom for it. Yeah, I mean, and more so I think talking and reading more about just the numbers of like permits, because that's an easy way to keep track of everything. It's like the number exploded after that movie, so it kind of speaks for itself, I think. Yeah.
How did you guys both get into trail work? Because that's how you met, right?
Yeah. I was hiking the Tahoe Rim Trail with my dad, and we ran into a backcountry crew, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing. Yeah, just talking to the trail workers and like, what, you live here for like half a year and like you don't have cell phones, like it's just so wild. It's such a crazy program for young kids, and yeah, that was just became my goal. Like I want to join this program and see what trail work is all about. Since I'm like out hiking these trails, it seems really cool to do that.
When you first got pregnant with Sequoia, did you have the feeling like, crap, my backpacking days are done, or at least on hold or diminished? What was your thought process?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I remember spending a ridiculous amount of time searching the internet, like backpacking families and like adventure families, and like just trying to find something. Yeah, instead of like looking up baby cribs and all that stuff. Like I was just like, I don't care. I want to know if I can still backpack and stuff. And I couldn't find much information, so it was really discouraging. And that's part of the reason why we're like doing the Instagram thing. And it means the world to me to hear like parents reach out and, write to me that, they're reading about our story and they're taking their 3-year-old for the first time out. It's like, that's awesome. 'Cause I was that person, like just looking for something like, felt crazy a little bit.
What would you say is the toughest age of the kiddos to backpack with? And
3 for
Three.
sure.
And what's the reason behind that?
Just still not really there with communication too much. So there's like, oftentimes crying, and you're just trying to figure out what it is that's wrong. And I value being able to talk to our older kids about their problems. It's nice.
And he doesn't walk.
And yes, and then the
So that's
Not at all. There's no like trade-off or anything.
A little bit.
there is, but it's but also that's kid to kid, because Joshua at his age, Sequoia at his age, were way more enthusiastic about walking, and he's so mellow that he's content sitting up on my shoulders, just like he'll just be
Zach's going to try to fast forward us to the kid questions, but I'm not letting us skip over the
Slow
love.
us down, Sean. Slow us down.
In as much detail as possible, can you tell me about how you guys met doing trail work and how you fell in love?
Yeah, sure. I remember the lake we were at. So we happened to join I joined the Seas, the California Conservation Corps, and then within that they have the Backcountry Trails program, and so I had been doing trail work not within that program, and that was like a big achievement that a lot of people did, and I really fell in love with the trail work and hiking and all that lifestyle, and so I joined, and there's like 6 crews in California for the major national parks and stuff like that. Shasta Trinity Alps was the one that we got chose for, and Marketa got hired off the internet. She applied that way, and we just happened to meet. And I think
we were David and I were the most enthusiastic hikers, I would say, on our crew. Like
definitely. 100%.
So on weekends in this program, you have like an opportunity to explore like the nature around, and we would always be like, let's do big miles, let's go far, let's like cover ground, and not everyone felt that way, and I really like that about David. He liked hiking fast, and
I imagine during the off time, people probably appreciated just relaxing, right? Because it's pretty physically demanding work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But
as we progress into the story, what were your first impressions of each other? Question for both of you.
The first thing I heard him say is that he's from Wrightwood, and I had just hiked the PCT, and that was instantly like, okay, this guy's from Wrightwood, and that happened to me to be my favorite town. I just really liked it there, and I was just like, town. Wow, I can't believe there's a guy from Wrightwood, like awesome, and he's good looking, like yes, it's a win-win.
In that order, Wrightwood, then good looking.
Trail Town, green flag.
Honestly, to be honest, walking on the baseball field, because we were in Placer before we left everybody split off to our crews, and she was sitting there sewing her patches onto her shirt, and I was like, she looked kind of mad. I was like, oh, okay. It's the very first time I saw her, but after that, it slowly blossomed into today.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lake. Let's continue this love journey.
Yeah, so in our season, after we spent our first month there building, we got split into 3 groups, and it was called the Migration, and so we all hiked for 2 weeks logging out the Shasta Trinities. That was like a big thing because they don't have a lot of money, and so we do a lot of the work. And so we did cross cuts because you're not allowed to use chainsaws. And so we split off into groups. We were not in a group together, and we met up for a resupply, the whole crew, in this place called Morris Meadow. And little tidbits here and there of us hiking out and getting to know each other more. But when we decided one night to take that weekend to hike up with a couple friends to Sapphire Lake, which is this beautiful lake above a meadow, and then there was there's like 3 lakes like layered up on top of each other. Super beautiful. We saw this awesome bear there. He kind of looked like he didn't know what he was doing, climbing up the side of the hill. It was really weird. It was a really good time. And then that was the night that I smashed my finger on a rock, and then she like massaged my hand. And then later that night we were hanging out, and then I finally made a move and kissed her, and and then the sparks flew, and then after that it was on. Yeah.
How'd she go from angry girl to massaging your hand?
I take so angry.
Yeah, I don't know. Cool. Yeah, we can't really choose.
I was that first day. My parents and sister had dropped me off, and I was so nervous. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is such a huge commitment." I think it was just, it was. I was really nervous.
I was probably nervous. Yeah, and I just,
sure.
I look pissed off when I'm focused, so I totally get that.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
And so I'm assuming you guys had like a nice outdoor naturey proposal. Is that right?
We didn't really have...
No, it was, kind of. I mean, remember
I
was
pregnant, and then we're like...
Oh, you mean like speeding up, like...
Yeah, we're jumping forward.
Proposal.
Did you propose?
No.
At a Dave & Buster's.
No, that would be cheesy, but pretty good. No, there wasn't really a proposal. Huh?
Yeah, it was just
like,
kind of like,
we
well,
were
now
sitting
we're
there,
gonna be a family,
like,
and
let's
it just kind of made
married.
sense.
Yeah.
It's not really a big deal. Our wedding was really small in the backyard, like.
Yeah, I guess I messed that one up. It could have been super romantic, and I didn't take advantage. So.
No, because I'm not that girl. I'm happy, keeping it casual and stuff like that. Yeah.
So you?
You.
Okay, me. So Sequoia was a surprise?
Yes.
Is that okay to ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Course,
Can you tell us about that? What was that like?
I mean, it was, I cried. It's like, oh my gosh. But I was also,
crazy.
it was also out of happiness. I don't feel like it was
instant, like, this is life now. I'm going to be a father.
Yeah, I couldn't really believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't either, because I didn't want kids. Ever.
Really?
Yeah, no. We didn't want kids.
Yeah.
We wanted to travel and be vagabonds and go moneyless.
Well, I think we got more
and
open to it in the year leading up to getting pregnant, but we had always talked that if anything, we would actually adopt.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we spoke about that a lot.
I always felt really like I'd like to do that. Yeah.
Which we also ended up doing. So.
Yeah. So.
I was gonna say, so you weren't sure you wanted kids, and now you've got 3. So walk us through that evolution. Was the experience with Sequoia just so joyous? You're like, you know what, we gotta triple down on this.
Sequoia was amazing first child. So blessed. Like that was our gateway into childhood. It was like, we don't understand why other people are saying it's so hard, because for us it just wasn't. It was pure joy all the time. It was so easy. It was so weird. I thought it was so easy. I just didn't understand.
So good sleeper, I take it.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good
we
sleeper.
didn't go through any of those classic things.
Yeah.
And now she's a teenager already. So I think we got it. Yeah. Got it coming now.
So that initial, I don't want kids, I want to be a vagabond lifestyle type thing, how do you go from that to the shock of, well, kids are now here, to including them in these adventures? Like, what was it like testing the waters with, can we do this, can't we do this, involving them more outdoors?
I think it just started, I remember getting back from the hospital and being like, we're going on a walk. Like, it was just a walk around the block, but it was like, that's the first thing I wanted to do.
Yeah, it was just more of kind of like an organic thing. It's not too much thought put into it. I would think.
Lots of time outdoors, letting her take naps outdoors, like just getting ourselves and her used to the idea. And it wasn't really like like we were thinking about it, like we were planning these things. It was just like what we naturally
We were doing anyway.
and we're like, well, we're not going to sit in a house with her and, you know, schedule her naps and do all these things that feel really stressful. We kind of just always prioritized like an adventure.
Nature.
And they were small at the beginning. I mean, short walks.
A lot of car trips.
Trips,
stuff like
lots
that.
of camping.
Yeah.
And
I have a question for Standa. What snacks are you working on right now?
Yeah, he's gonna eat this whole bag of gum.
Is that gum?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's a massive bag of gum.
It's better than candy.
Yeah. So walk me through the process. So Sequoia adapted to the outdoors very seamlessly. Has it been that way for all three of the kids?
Joshua was pretty good. I'd say it was Sequoia was the easiest. Joshua was the second easiest, and I'd say Standa's the hardest. At least with backpacking, like in my opinion. Obviously, aspects are different within each child. Sequoia was definitely just always kind of like easy, but I guess Joshua was hard. He cried. He cried a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's because he had. And we didn't know it at the beginning. It turns out he has asthma. And so, you know, I would be going on these short little walks and he would just start asthma. And he would start crying and, you know, it was so frustrating. Like just trying to figure out why he's crying and how to help him, and there was really nothing I could do because he was just having a hard time breathing and I just didn't know. Yeah. So
you mentioned that the trail work was largely in national parks, right?
Yeah, and national forests.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also noticed that the oldest name is Sequoia. Is that the area of conception?
Not Sequoia National Forest, but we have Sequoia sempervirens, the trees, the redwoods, the coastal redwoods.
Yeah.
And so it was, it seemed, like a really good name.
Very poetic.
Yeah.
Very poetic. So, at what point did the prospect of like a long backpacking trip even become feasible for you guys?
That was when Sequoia was 15 months that we decided, or 14 months, we decided to try the Tahoe Rim Trail. And that was the first like big, we had backpacked, but it was like 3 days, 4 days maximum. And so we decided to hike the Tahoe Rim Trail, and it was wonderful. And a month later,
14 months, a year and a half apart. Were you pregnant at that point?
No, because Josh was adopted.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that part.
So at 14 months.
14 months.
When Sequoia was 14 months, we did the Tahoe Rim Trail. Then at 15 months, we did the John Muir Trail. And you remember Tahoe? And then shortly after, we found out about Joshua. I think she was 18 months, so it's 2 months after doing these trails, and that's also why the whole process with Joshua was very confusing and stressful for me, because it was this big contrast between like opening this door, like, oh, we're doing it, like we're doing the backpacking that we've always wanted, and suddenly, you know, you got like so much paperwork and social workers coming to the house, and
not allowed to leave the state, like just all kinds of stuff.
What's that like for getting approved for adoption? Like, did the backpacking with young kids come up as a flag to them? Did they not care? Because we've had conversations with families on here before where like people don't always love you hiking with young kids. Was that something that they didn't like or didn't notice?
I don't think at that point in time it was much discussed. Maybe we told our the social worker on the case that we had done that and stuff, and that we wanted to include him, and that's and they see it as a positive. You know, we spend a lot of time outdoors, so that's always.
But I also think this is our adoption journey isn't exactly Normal.
No,
Why?
it's not. It's not at all. Well, Joshua is my sister's son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so
Yes.
it was very weird because if you don't mind, I'll just tell you
I would love
the
to know.
beginning.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I was at work one day and building trails, running crews and stuff, and they called me, and immediately my heart said yes, and I was like, yes, of course. I'm at work. I got to go home, talk to my wife, and make sure it's good. And this is in Southern California, kind of near Wrightwood, because that's where my sister was living. And within a couple hours, I call them back, and they're like, we already found a home for him. And I was just like, what? I already told you I needed to talk to my wife. It's been like 3 hours. And so instead of us being able to go pick him up and take him in, because we're family, and you could do that, they called me. They basically gave him to another family, and then we had to start the entire process as if we were random people coming off the street wanting to adopt. And so they put us through the entire process.
How old was he at the time?
He was brand new. And then we got him at 3 months, but we didn't fully adopt him until he was almost 2.
Wow. So now you have both kids that neither one had a plan going into it, right?
Yeah, no plan.
Sort of like Thru-Hiking. It's the perfect
Yeah.
metaphor.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's And how did Sequoia take to the surprise addition of a sibling?
So
Yeah,
it was hard.
it was
She was
up and
going through like a
down.
biting phase, and there was
Yeah.
a lot going on. There was definitely cute moments, and then there was not cute moments at all. And yeah, it was very
So it's
very intense.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Is it because of the quick gathering of a new child, or would this happen with regular siblings? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned that Leah wasn't
I can
thrilled
speak
in
to
the
my
beginning.
story.
Yeah,
it
please.
wasn't love at first sight. I can say that. It's warming up slowly still. Like he's not totally infatuated with the idea of it. I think a lot of that is just because they're so young, so he doesn't get the feedback that he's looking for. But yeah, at first it was like, oh, I have to share my attention now. This sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry for the language.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our experience at least.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's a huge shift, and and going from this perfect, idyllic family, and then suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, our whole world was just turned upside down, and I had a hard time, leaving the house, and just thinking, and then he was bottle fed. That was a huge difference.
I imagine that adds a serious logistic in the terms of backpacking.
Yes.
Can you compare and contrast the bottle feeding versus breastfeeding?
Yeah, there's a pretty funny story I want to tell you real quick. We were doing around Mount Hood.
Yeah, the Timberline
Trail. Yeah, with Joshua. I was carrying him on the front, and she had Sequoia on her back, and we dropped his container of the formula fell out onto the trail, and we were keeping it in a Talenti's jar, and it was kind of like a white powder. And then
people thought you were like drug kingpins or something.
no, these dudes ran by, and we were like, "Hey, did you guys happen to see formula?" It happened like an hour before, so I was about to hike back, and they're like, was it in a Talenti jar? It's like, yeah. And he's like, dude, I thought this was cocaine. We were so excited. And then he gave it back to us. And
Did they
it was
try
pretty
any?
good. No, because they were running.
Imagine.
Yeah. I would have gotten a nice little energy kick from it. It's pretty nutrient dense.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Like snorting a multivitamin or something.
Yeah.
They give it back. You're like, thank God, my cocaine.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
So what was the difference with backpacking with one child versus with two? What were the main, either difficulties or differences that you noticed adding another kid to the mix?
Weight, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, we were on the Timberline Trail. We were carrying both of them, and that was probably by far, even to this day, the most weight I've ever carried. I was carrying that hiking backpack, the Osprey, and I had Sequoia in it, and it was just loaded. I just remember my toenail fell off.
Oh gosh.
And we weren't hiking in sandals yet, so shoes, I don't do good with shoes. That's why we're always in sandals. and yeah, it was brutal. Brutal amount of weight.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
I remember the water crossings at the Timberline Trail to be a little bit more intense than I was expecting. I thought it could just be like a very simple trail, and I remember there were at least 2 of the water crossings that made me a little bit more nervous than I was anticipating. I imagine having a small child on your back ups the ante a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Were you guys tense doing that at those water crossings?
No, we didn't run into anything
Yeah, when we were there.
too crazy. I mean,
So
lots of rock hopping for sure. I don't know.
Like October or something. I feel like the water wasn't at its highest when we went.
Yeah, it was in the summer, so I'm guessing that maybe accounts for the difference.
Yeah, I think so a lot. But
So what was the Tahoe Rim Trail experience like with just the one kiddo?
Beautiful.
yeah, it was awesome.
Like
And we had
meditating
our
along the
dog
way.
with
Yeah.
us too.
Oh, yeah?
Who chased off a massive bear when I fell asleep cooking noodles, and the bear was just walking up to take the noodles, and he it was massive. I was like, I didn't know bears that big existed in Tahoe. So that was, it was really cool. And having Sequoia there was amazing. You put her down and she would just go. You had to go catch her. She wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
She's that type of baby. Yeah,
And I
it's really
think
interesting.
looking back at just having one child, I think the most wonderful thing about it is that you can hike fast
Right.
and then
nice.
take long breaks. Yeah.
Is that because the person who's carrying the kid isn't necessarily then carrying all that much gear or any gear?
Yeah.
No, I was carrying Sequoia and some gear, but not nearly as much as now, obviously.
No, you're not so much.
But-
No.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
at
like
that age you can
utilizing-
carry a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you can carry the baby a lot, and they don't get as frustrated with sitting in a backpack.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, as fast as you can hike, we can just go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
it's
I
nice.
remember that one day we woke up like super early, and hiked super late. Yeah, I forget. But yeah, we were able to do quite a bit of miles.
Yeah, I mean, we did it in 10 or 11 days, I think, didn't we? So, pretty sure, right?
Yeah, I forget.
Same with the JMT.
But yeah,
Didn't
we
take
would
too
always
long.
hike when she'd be napping, and that's kind of when we would do the most miles. Yeah.
I guess that kind of brings up my next question is walk us through what the schedule looks like, both when you're first starting off Tahoe Rim Trail and then fast forward to today. I imagine it's a little bit more complicated with 3 kids versus a baby.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, with one kid, you're mostly on your own schedule. The kid is. I feel like with one child, the parents is their whole unit, and so it's easier for them to go. I've noticed one of the hardest things with children is transitioning from one activity to the next, and especially when they have siblings, when they actually get into something. So I would say just with one, and at the beginning it was very easy. It didn't feel, there was no resistance, there was no friction. It just felt like everybody was in it together. Now, fast forwarding to now, it's very, very difficult and very hard. Every transition usually is argument, lots of crying, needing a lot of support and being talked to constantly and helped. And it's very slow, very, very slow. Yeah, it's extremely slow.
How has it changed your relationship with each other hiking with kids? Because I imagine when I'm hiking, I sometimes need to have my own alone time because I have trouble managing my own emotions when I'm stressed out and tired and in pain. With that, and then having kids to take care of, and then having each other, and I'm sure by this point you're not in the honeymoon phase, and you guys probably have little things that piss you off about each other. How do you manage all of that?
It's we're still learning. I don't know. It's a work.
Yeah.
Constantly working on it.
Yeah. I think we just wholeheartedly agree on the fundamentals, and so even though we have our differences and whatnot, we've already chosen to be with each other, and we've already chosen to do these things, and so all those squabbles that we have in between is just kind of a natural thing. And I mean, we're not perfect, so I have no idea. And a lot of the times we don't hike together. Like, she's with Standa and I'm with the kids, and that could be for like hours at a time. And so we have lots of time apart, almost too much, in my opinion. Like, I would love to spend more time with her. I would love to sleep with her without the kids, you know. So eventually that'll come back, and yeah, that'll be nice. So yeah.
It's not exactly romantic to be in a 2-person tent with 3 kids.
Yeah.
I understand that. So you mentioned that when you guys first met, you kind of connected because you both like to hike big miles, do big days, and then contrasting that now with what you said about the AT, where it's very challenging because you're basically juggling 3 different schedules and mindsets, emotions. Does any part of you feel like you're sacrificing the way that you'd like to hike, or are you so enriched by being with your family that you're able to get over the aspect that you're not pulling the miles that you'd like to pull?
For me, it's both. Yeah, I mean, my emotion range swings up and down each day like a normal person, I would think, and my desires do also. And some days I'm like, F this, I hate this, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And then some days I'm like, feel like the most blessed person ever and can't believe that we even get to do this. So it just varies so much, at least for me. How about you, Marketa?
Yeah, I think, sorry, hold on. Wait, what was the question?
Just about
talking to him about the...
No worries. If it feels like a sacrifice, because you guys both like to hike big miles, and obviously that's challenging with kids.
Yeah, no, it definitely is a huge sacrifice, but I'm like, I feel like I'm actively trying to embrace like the slow pace and just this change. Also because it's I know it's not going to last forever, and you know, soon they're going to be teenagers and they're probably not going to want to hike with us. I don't know. I feel like that's a legit possibility. Like no matter how much we try to instill this, like they're going to have their own interests, and so it's like, well, this is now, and then it'll be different. So might as well enjoy it. But it is hard. It's especially hiking so slow.
Yeah. A mile an hour sometimes.
Yeah. You bring up something that I think is there might be a lot of different viewpoints within the community about like the family style hiking, as I think some people have the perception that parents are forcing their kids to do this a lot of times. You mentioned that if your kids were teenagers and they didn't want to do it, then maybe that's not how things would play out. At this age, how do you gauge that? Because I imagine that Sequoia is old enough that she has clear interests and things that she wants to do, but at least for my toddler, like basically the only thing he wants to do is watch Miss Rachel. So I don't know.
Yeah.
If he had it his way, it would be not necessarily
sure.
not the best lifestyle. So you have to force him to do the things.
Yeah, I think at this age, it's just. I
mean, you wrote about this. It's like we force our kids to go to school, we force our kids to eat, to get dressed, to do everything. And so now we're forcing them to go into the mountains with us.
And I consider it my responsibility to do these, to force our kids to do these things, because that's like our job, like to show them the world and show them the possibilities, and it just doesn't make sense to like they don't have, like, they're like a blank slate, and you want to put the good stuff on there, and there's so many times that the kids say, like, I don't want to be here, I don't like hiking. Sometimes hikers are like, oh, how you doing? And they're like, I hate hiking. And they're like, oh God, like, it must look really bad, but it's those moments that I have the same feelings inside myself, like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't like this, I don't want to be here, I want to go home. And we get through it, and then next thing you know, they're running down the trail. So it's hard to say, like,
it is.
I sympathize with people who say, like, this is bad, like, you can't force your kids to do this, because sometimes there is like huge resistance that you have to work through, but when I look at the big picture, it's undeniably great for them and a positive experience.
I wonder how many of the people that say you can't force your kids to do this aren't parents themselves. Because to your point, you force your kids to do basically everything. Because if it was up to them, it'd be eating candy and watching TV. Like you have to force them to be functioning members of society.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, with all the time that they've spent outside, this might be a really difficult question to answer because it's probably impossible to just isolate the one variable. But I'm curious to know, relative to their peers, what characteristics of your kids do you think are different? Like, what attributes have they gained from spending so much time outside?
Oh, hands down, like physical abilities.
100%.
It's incredible.
Their shoes off and climbing everything. They just don't really see the barriers that I see some kids kind of stop. Nothing against them. They just see it in a different way. And our kids just don't. It's like if there's a tree, they're going to climb it. If there's a fence, they're probably going to climb it. They will literally climb everything if you don't tell them no. And it's usually shoes off first, and then they go sometimes naked. They try to get naked in town, and it's like, no, you can't get naked here. You have to wear your clothes here. Like, stuff like that, I would say. Yeah.
When you're a toddler, every day is hike naked day.
Yeah. I feel like, and I don't have kids, so this is all me speculating, but I feel like having your kids run off and start climbing things that, I mean, I don't like heights myself, right? Like, I feel like that would be scary, or could be scary, which leads me to wonder, like, do you guys have any good scary moment stories on trail hiking with kids? Anytime where you, like, seriously freaked out?
Not with climbing, but that one day comes to mind. I know you're thinking about it too.
It doesn't have to be climbing.
When we were calling for Sequoia, and we were by water.
By a cliff, and by water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she wouldn't answer us, which she likes to do constantly.
Yeah.
Her and her brother love to not answer when we're calling for them. And it was freaky. I was freaking out. I didn't know what happened. Our mind creates all these, realities.
But,
of what
she was
could be.
right over there, just like crouching behind a rock.
Yep.
But we were like running around, like we're like, oh my God, did she fall in? Like, what happened? Where is she? Yeah.
Yeah. And feeling like fear and anger also, just like this mix of like anger at yourself, angry at everything. Like, how could I let my child leave? So that's just something you got to work through, and hopefully not explode on your child when you see him. I definitely raised my voice at her and was like, this is not okay. Like, you're never allowed to do that again. And while we've been out into the wilderness, I guess she hasn't too much, but they do it everywhere else. In the house, we're looking for them, and they're just like, they just don't care. It's pretty funny if you think about it, but
So we've interviewed a few families now, but we haven't really talked too much about breastfeeding. One, I'm curious to know, because my wife's breastfeeding now, and her appetite is out of control. Like, what is it? You burn an extra 600-800 calories per day, and then you add backpacking on top of it. Are you just insatiable during a backpacking breastfeeding session?
I was not.
No?
If anything, my appetite goes down when I hike.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think that's just hiking. It's I had a big appetite when I was breastfeeding, but it just didn't happen on trail. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we cold soaked the JMT while she was breastfeeding. Horrible idea, by the way.
And we were
just because eating cold mush.
Eating cold mush.
Yeah,
it's just gross.
No, it's like in an effort to save on weight.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we were also plant-based and very different back then.
So you guys no longer plant-based?
I love fruits and vegetables, but I eat meat too. Okay.
Yeah. What was the transition for you guys?
It was regular diet, American to vegan, like hardcore vegan, and then kind of back into vegetarian, and then now back to eating meat again. Yeah.
Was there any particular moment that switched you from one to the other?
Just not feeling like I was gaining anything from being restrictive at all. Like I didn't feel any different. I didn't see any change mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So it just didn't make sense to me.
Sure.
Like I understand the concepts and everything about it in different cultures, and I look at it in those ways, but at the same time, it didn't really, it felt like I was turning it into a philosophy, and it wasn't like a benefit in my actual life. It was just like a mental trick I was playing with myself for me personally, and so I was just like, I need to let that go, like, and just kind of be grateful for what you have. Yeah.
I want to jump to the PCT. Tell me about just the hike in general. Was it always the plan to do 1,300 miles? Had you planned on doing the full thing? How did it go? Like all the questions.
At first, I was like, we're doing the whole thing. Yeah, like, if we're going to attempt it, we're going to do the whole thing. That immediately changed, and it was like within the first 2 days, I think we almost quit. And we didn't have service, and so we couldn't reach out. And then we decided to keep going. And then it just became, well, yeah, I mean, like, I took the time off, and we're out here, so let's just go until we don't want to go anymore. And that became, like, the way that we hiked. It was just like, okay, let's keep going, and that was just it. That's all we did. We just kept going until Joshua got pneumonia, and then we were in contact with his doctor the whole time and stuff, and then she was like, you guys should come home now. And she wanted to take a look at him and everything, and so 1,300, and I felt so good. I was like, yes, I'm going home. Like, I don't care. This is awesome. Yeah.
Was it
so
a
happy.
continuous 1,300, or did you guys pick and choose sections?
Yeah, we had to flop a little bit, and we had skipped miles like going north, but it was pretty much solid all the way through the first 700 to South Kennedy Meadows, and we went through the JMT and then through Tuolumne North. Like 900. It was close to being pretty solid all the way through. And then the fire started when we were in Quincy, I think, and so we hopped on a train and went up to Portland, and to Dunsmuir. There we go, to Dunsmuir, and then from Dunsmuir to Portland, and then we tried to go to Washington and go to the border of Canada and back with a different setup that Marketa was using for Standa, and it was horrible. This instead of having like a external frame, she had these carabiners on like a Enlightened equipment backpack, Hyperlite, no frame, and so the carabiners were just like digging in, and so we only did like 10 miles out, and then took like 3 days to do 10 miles back, and it was awesome doing like 3 miles a day. It was so great.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah. Walk us through the gear setup. I know that's got to be a very common question that you guys get,
totally.
But it's kind of like a black box. Like, how do you make this work with a family?
I got backpack, both sleeping quilts, we decided. I have the stove, which is the Caldera cone, I think, with like a cat can and denatured alcohol for fuel. And then my clothes, sometimes I have one of the kids' clothes bags, and then I carry all the food, most of the water. That's about it. I carry super light. Oh, of weight?
Yeah.
The PCT in the desert got up to like 80 pounds.
Wow.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was, and then walking a mile an hour is like, with 80 pounds, is like, it's really hard.
Yeah. Does that suck your joy from the experience at all?
It did a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
In the desert. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you done there?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounded bitchy. I shouldn't curse in front of kids. I'm really doing great here.
I do it all the time.
I don't have any yet. I still don't know how to treat the environment. Okay, when I was in the desert, like for myself personally, it was hard in parts rationing water for just me. Like, I'm a ginger, I get very thirsty, I'm soft when it comes to heat.
Hashtag ginger facts.
But like, and I had to baby myself and be like, okay, I have to ration it, I can't drink it, I'm thirsty, I'll only have a sip. How was it doing the desert and having to keep things like that in mind with kids, where like you have to almost tell them no or not so much sometimes when they want something basic like water?
We definitely, like, Joshua likes to chug.
Yeah, don't
water,
chug became a big phrase.
Yeah. Trying to
Don't
teach them
chug.
to, like, take a
like,
drink
yeah,
of water and
sip,
hold it in the
hold
mouth.
it in the mouth.
We did a little bit of that.
And over carry a
Yeah.
lot.
How much water were you carrying?
I think the most I carried was like 3.5 gallons
Wow.
on top of everything.
Yeah. What is it?
Sheesh.
5
It's
gallons.
16, 24, like 28 pounds.
So that's 13 plus liters.
Yeah,
That's
13
wild.
liters.
And
yeah.
you're
That's
carrying
wild.
a kid too?
No, I didn't have the kid.
Okay.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah. Thank Marketa, I mean.
How are you even breaking up the water in your pack? Is this a bunch of 2-liter bags that you're transporting them in?
Yeah, the big, what are they called? I don't even know
Cenote?
what the bags. Yeah, I guess Cenote.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the bladder, and then a bunch of bottles, and then that's basically it. And then I think one time I had 2 bags. Yeah, 2 bags and all the bottles filled, and bag on top, like strapped down. Something like that.
And then I carried, like,
And then she had 2 or
sometimes
3
3
later.
bottles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
liters also.
And how heavy was Marketa's pack, including human beings?
You're like 55 to 65, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That's
And
cost.
yeah, and mine would go down, so I was getting lighter, and so
Right.
it became easier and more joyful, and she just like stayed the same the
Yeah.
whole way, which is I don't know what's better or worse.
Yeah.
Another thing we did in the desert to try to help with the water situation was night hiking. Are the kids comfortable with night hiking? Are you dealing with being afraid of the dark?
I
No,
wish we could have night
We,
hiked.
we tried. Got them glow sticks. We're like, this is going to be so great. And yeah, the sun went down, and
Just out.
I was like, we need to
they
camp
just lost
immediately.
it. You know, it's time for bed.
Yeah.
They just melt down.
Yeah.
Didn't work out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was the aqueduct section. Very naively, we thought this is going to be great. They have glow sticks. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but we also were like, we knew that was a most likely going to happen, because it just by 8 p.m. like we need to have the tent set up and the opportunity for them to lay down and sleep, because 8 p.m. is like the for us. Yeah.
So there was a story in the PCT recently of a hiker that was bitten by a rattlesnake. How do you prepare young, curious kids for staying away from snakes?
I take them to them, actually. Yeah, so like when I see them, I'm like, kids, come see. And we sit there and stare at it and talk about it. And just let them know, like, this is, this thing will defend itself. You come near it, and it's going to take you as a threat, and it's most likely going to bite you. And it might be a dry bite, and it might not be a dry bite, and you're not going to know, so stay away from them. Be smart, be aware.
And always just talking to them about it.
Constantly speaking about it all the time.
Often not letting them hike ahead.
That was a big
in
one.
in some of the desert sections.
Yeah,
we're
and
like,
not
you
letting
guys
them
can't.
go off to poop by themselves, like going with them, because that's when we saw a pretty big one in Sequoia together.
Yeah.
So was that your plan all along? Was that you would encounter and then that would become an educational moment, or was there any like preparation going into the trail?
I think it's we just have that approach with everything. Like if we see a bug, if we see a butterfly, if we see
because I'm interested too. I'm like, I want to look at this thing. It's beautiful creation. I don't know.
it's kind of the idea that we don't want them to be afraid, and pretending like they don't exist just doesn't seem like a good way, because they do, and we did see a couple, and I think they have a very reasonable, like they have like respect for bears.
They know they
they-
will
they-
get bit if they mess with it. So
At what age can you feel like you can cohesively communicate that? Because I don't know if I could do that with my 2.5-year-old. Like I could say, like,
I
this
feel-
thing is dangerous. And
right,
I
I don't think it would be so much as words as it would just be like body language and the experience of it,
Yeah.
like carrying them up a couple feet away and like kneeling down with them and then pointing to them, and I don't know, it'd be more like more of like a feeling connection than words. I would
Like
think.
on the AT, we saw a black bear, you know, and you can just feel like the energy change in the group, you know, and I think it's like that, like, okay, like, let's be still, you know, let's look at it. Black bear.
No blackberries, bud.
You said his buzzword.
Yeah.
You mentioned not letting them go off to poop by themselves in the desert, and the word poop obviously triggers the best question of the interview, which is, I'm sure hiking with kids, you probably have some really good poop stories.
Yeah.
Do we?
I don't know.
I'm sure kids on trail.
I mean,
you
just
must.
generally the topic of pooping is just hilarious with them because it's a work in progress. Trying to teach them.
Even now, it's more of
Yeah.
a work in progress in normal life than it is out there, because now they're pulling down their pants in the parking lot, trying to go poop still. You know?
Have
Yeah.
they pooped in a public parking
Yes,
lot?
they have.
Honestly, I feel that after a through hike. It's like, why can't I just go anywhere that I want? This is so restrictive.
Yeah.
That's me
Totally.
with peeing. Yeah, I mean, even still, when we were on that Nashville Bachelorette, they parked this, like, we did this bus thing, and I was talking to the guy that was driving the bus because like 6 of the girls went across the street to this restaurant to go to the bathroom inside, and like 30 minutes had passed because the line was so long, and I was like, do you mind if I pee behind your bus? And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm not waiting on that line. So we had this code going where I would just go pee behind the bus when everyone else would get off. But
Nice.
yeah, it's a great treat to have, I think.
No, I remember in Big Bear, we met up with my parents, and we had like rented like a cabin for all of us and with a bathroom inside, and yeah, Joshua ran out to go poop under the cabin.
Crawled under the
Found
cabin
it.
to
I was
go
like,
take a dump.
oh no, like this
That
kid
is so
doesn't get
funny.
it. This is where you poop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So are they like digging up holes in your backyard? Or are they being LNT about it at least?
not like that, but just when we're out and
No.
about, like and a bathroom isn't accessible or visible, like they're like, yeah, I can poop
Yeah,
right here.
I
Like
need to go, I'm
they do
gonna go.
search out dirt generally. I mean, I think they
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pay more attention.
yeah.
So I'm sure it's gonna keep happening. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the hard part about being a parent. There's just poop all the time to differentiate
Yeah.
from one story that stands out.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you mentioned this especially on the AT, and I guess this could apply to either the AT or the PCT, but in the scenario of meltdowns, one, is there a common thing that triggers them? And two, do you have a go-to strategy or maybe strategies for dealing with them?
Transitions always, like I had mentioned before, is usually the meltdown trigger, because usually it's like break becomes play, and they get very, very involved in their play, and then here come the parents, and they're like, yeah, we got to keep going. And so yeah, it's usually a big triggering event. How do I deal with it? Kit Kats work pretty well.
I think being trying to keep it playful a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
playing games.
Try not to feel like rushed, especially when you say it, like not giving off the feeling of like, okay, we need to go.
Yeah.
More of like a
Right.
playful thing. Hard to do, but yeah, it's worth it. Worth it to try.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we would play a lot of games while hiking, like
Yeah, totally.
even hide and seek. Like yeah, you can play hide and seek while hiking.
They run up behind the trees, and you watch them
Yeah.
do it, and they don't care. They
Yeah,
still
right.
think they're hiding.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Pop out to scare you, and you act scared, and yeah.
Sometimes we would all run. The kids would like, yeah, let's all run, and then you're just running there with the heavy
You come
backpack.
back.
Like, yeah, this is so fun. Just trying to be happy about it. Lots of games.
Yeah, what other kind of moving games do you do?
An interesting one they came up with at one point was they would take like a rock and they would run ahead to go plant it, and they would just keep doing that. They really liked it. Like,
Yeah. Telling stories was a big one too.
yeah, of course.
Telling stories. Not so much singing, but definitely telling stories. They love stories. So that worked a lot. But sometimes the meltdowns continued on into the hiking, and you just keep hiking, and they're melting down, and you're just like, well, we got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
We literally don't have enough food to just sit here and chill.
Right.
Like, we have to keep going. Like, trying to tell a child that is like, that's a really big concept. I think they don't fully understand.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've found snacks to be a game changer for me personally.
Totally.
There was just 1 week, for the longest time, Leo loved going on walks, and then he just decided that he was going to have a meltdown every time we did it. And, like, I would get so frustrated because, you know, I want them to do outdoorsy stuff.
Totally, yeah.
And then I just started packing chocolate or cookies or something like that. And, like, it's just been so easy ever since. So, yeah, it's amazing how...
You figured it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So there was something that you had written in a recent Instagram post about once you had made the decision, and I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, we'll come back to this story, but once you had made the decision to get off the AT, that you ran an experiment about, instead of, because every morning you would just get up and start hiking, that was part of the routine. You wanted to see how long you could go before the kids would notice that you weren't hiking, and just see how they would behave in that instance.
Yeah.
Oh, the last day, you mean?
Yeah, when we like
I'll let you,
sat. Yeah, we just. Yeah, we came up with it that morning and sat around. Yeah, just like, when are they gonna tell us? Like, why are we still here?
Yeah, it's been like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Moved.
And yeah, we eventually caved in and we're like, okay, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
They're just. Yeah.
And then we tried to go the opposite way and tell them, no, it's the correct way.
Yeah.
You know? But they knew.
They knew?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I was surprised because a lot of the time, Sequoia will start off, be like, okay, Sequoia, start hiking. She'll go the opposite way. And they're like, no, Sequoia that way. But this time she knew. And it was just like,
Yeah.
the one time we're going to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
What was your takeaway with them just being totally content not hiking? Like, was there a learning lesson in that, or is it just that they're just so go with the flow that...
I think it just shows how much motivation there, how much, what's it called? Like, how much we have, it's on us to motivate them. Because they're just
Yeah,
content.
they would sit there all day.
Yeah, they were like climbing trees, going to the water.
Yeah, there's food and water there.
Yeah,
They're
it's
good.
like,
Yeah.
we're good. Yeah.
And you'd mentioned that was one of many experiments that you would run with the kids. Or are there other things like that on trail that you had tested?
I can't really remember. Maybe talking about towns. Marketa, can you think of anything?
Any other experiments?
Yeah.
Well, just that day that we tried to go the opposite direction to trick them.
Did not work.
Yeah.
So
No.
why did you guys end up getting off the AT? I'm not sure why it was only 250. I'm sure some people listening probably won't either.
It is, well, Joshua's foot got hurt. He broke his growth plate a month before we started, and then he got cleared by the doctor, and they're like, oh, yeah, you can go hike. Yeah, totally. And we started hiking, and even on the CDT, when we first attempted that, he was complaining a little bit. I was like, uh-oh, that's no good. And then, we were only on there for 2 days, I think, and before we left. And so we're like, yeah, good. We got some driving time. He'll get to rest and whatever else. And then just slowly, he started complaining more and more about his ankle, and it was like, really? Like, what's going on? And then we got him an x-ray, and where was that town? Super Irwin. Yeah. Next to the not the Chattanooga River, different river. Anyway, and they said nothing was there. And so we were just confused because it just progressed to where within 5 minutes in the morning he started complaining, and he was limping, and you could just see it in his face and stuff. And so in good conscience, we just could not keep going. It was like, no, we're done. I'm okay with it. So, yeah.
So still to this day, you don't know like the diagnosis of the injury?
No. Yeah, his x-ray came out clean again, and it could be some tissues are just inflamed, and everything didn't fully go back its perfect order.
Yeah, we had like a virtual appointment with Blaze Physio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was so helpful. Really put us at ease. She said that it's basically just the result of his like ligaments tightening after wearing the cast, and so he should be
we
fine.
might have
He
not
just-
given enough time.
I think that's just it. Yeah, we came out too soon after that.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight is pretty obvious. I mean, maybe that,
Yeah.
Shout out to Chance with the strong mom instinct there, whipping out the paper and pens.
Yeah.
Shout out to me carrying around paper and pens.
Yeah, there you go.
31 and still a child. What has the feedback been? Obviously, you guys were, as we mentioned before recording, a huge, like, highly requested, guest to get on the show. People really wanted to hear from you, and based on the past interviews we've done with families, there's also the other side where like people aren't super, supportive of hiking with young kids. What have you guys noticed in terms of support, pushback, just in general, this experience?
Well, in real life, people 100%, every single person has been supportive.
You mean people are ruder online? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
Get out.
Basically, yeah. You got the trolls in their basement, who they fear what they don't understand, and so whatever.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions?
That we're abusing our children.
And that we're forcing them. There was one that one person that made comments about their diet, and I have to say that one
I agree.
Yeah,
backpacking food
it's
is
not the greatest diet. Much as we tried to fill up on good food in towns, it's undeniable, like garbage basically.
It is garbage, in my opinion. After that long of eating it,
And this year we on the PCT we used a lot of candy to motivate the kids, and we that's why I have gum right now. Like, we switched that out with gum and realized okay, this works basically the same. And just stuck to like chocolate, but no more like lollipops and just sugar candy type stuff. And so at least that's gotten better.
Forget about that. Diet's definitely I mean that's a fair
and
thing to
trying to do
sure.
more simple foods like beans and rice, and they don't really enjoy the fancy mountain house. Basically, the cheaper the better.
The more
great.
simple, the cheaper. The more they like it.
It's interesting that you guys can say okay, that person that commented, in a way where you're hearing them out, because I feel like I would just be on the defense. If I'm getting shit online, I can't curse around kids. If I'm getting feedback I don't love online, I imagine it's hard to go into it with an open mind and want to see someone else's side. How do you do that? Do you clap back at certain things? Do you hold your tongue on certain things? How do you weigh?
I have a rule for myself that I don't want to be no matter how disrespectful people are on the internet. I just have no interest in lashing out, partly because I know that it's not helpful to anyone, and I'd rather throw some love at the person, and I think that helps me see their side, because they do have a side. There's always something behind it. With the diet and even the forcing and stuff. They have their experience, and there's just no reason to be mean. And I think that we have it all. We have it all figured out. We don't, and
I can present a full plate of vegetables to my toddler, and that just gets dropped on a dog's head. He's not eating that stuff. Yeah. So I just wonder, the people who are giving you that grief, do you have kids? Because the only relatively healthy thing that my son eats, and this is a joke, but it's true, is those dinosaur chicken nuggets. That's the healthiest thing that he eats. We can't get him. I guess he likes fruit. That's the one thing he does well with. But otherwise, every vegetable, every piece of meat is just getting thrown, or he's not having it.
And a lot of the time they won't eat it all.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
You've been going 6-7 hours strong with like 3 blueberries. Like, what's going on here? And it's a little bit freaky, but eventually, I guess after 3, it's just kind of like you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. They're smart. They're intelligent. They know what they need and what they don't need.
Yeah.
So they pick and choose. And yeah, all we can do is present them the options. And that's basically it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they crave in town?
That's a good question. Ice cream?
Indian
Huge
food.
Indian food.
Indian food. We've been eating
That's
Indian
top.
food. Yeah.
Is that you
Every
guys or
single
them?
time. Them too.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like one of the things that's like always.
What's the go-to dish?
Paneer tikka masala.
Oh.
Wow, refined palates.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which is odd because,
Yeah, and I
like-
love Indian food. So
Yeah.
I'm so happy. That's the one thing.
Yeah. So on the flip side of the online critiques, I imagine you get a ton of support. I saw that obviously your Patreon is very active, so there's a big community of people that are very interested in your journey and supporting you.
Yeah.
What's the most common question or maybe piece of feedback? Let's go with question, because I imagine you guys get questions all the time on like, how can I do this with my family? What's the thing that is holding most people up based on the outreaches that you get?
It's more of a question for Marketa. She is the online manager. She asks me questions about what I think and yada yada yada, but that's about my
Yeah,
that's
I think I would say like people are well, at least people with kids are most interested in hearing about how we motivate them, which is understandable because I have a hard time motivating them at home, and I think it just comes down to it's a very different experience to be living on the trail, hiking every single day. They just get it.
Mm-hmm.
They understand
but
what's
also like
happening.
what is keeping the people from actually like taking the first step like out of their home, like like what is the, is it a physical thing or is it just the mental thing of leaving the comfort of what you know?
Well, it's hard to say. Like, I think it matters like who's asking. Like, some people are maybe like inexperienced and they just have a lot of fear about all kinds of stuff.
There's definitely a lot of fear about bears. Lots of fear about bears.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I'm
Yeah.
always kind of like, why is there like so much fear about
I
bears?
I do notice a lot of people ask about the rattlesnakes, bears, and to me that's like the least of my worries. I mean, just where we live in California, like there's rattlesnakes there. I wouldn't be able to hike if I was like fearful of that. So yeah, I don't know what that. I think just the more time you spend outside, the more at ease you feel.
Yeah, that's the more I'm realizing too, is like you don't have to do these huge extravagant things. Just like take your shoes off and go walk in some grass and go sit underneath a tree and just do simple things, and it helps a lot, tremendously, in my opinion. And especially for the kids. The
Yeah,
simpler
like
the
we'd have a
better.
lot of picnics and like navigating, like eating food in a
Food's so
reasonable
big.
way.
It's a big center
Outside.
piece of life with children.
I've also noticed with the hiking family community, for lack of a better word, some of them feel a pressure to like establish records and be the first and be the youngest to do the full thing, and I see a smile happening over there. I actually think it's an attribute to you guys that you're willing to throw in the towel on these hikes and just love it for what it is. Do you feel any of that pressure to be like, we must continuously northbound to do blah blah blah?
No.
I mean, there's definitely
I don't
when
feel-
people would say like, I mean, they tickle my ego, be like, oh, your kid's like the youngest to ever do this first, and it's like, of course, it's like a little, it's not even me, it's my kid. But
Yeah.
there's that, there's that thing about being human. But yeah, I mean, it would go away, and then it would just be normal again, and you just keep going, and yeah.
Well, I think with kids, it's just like the Netterberg family, right? They have older kids, so I feel like it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But like with these young kids, like, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're going out there to try to set a record. Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's you just never know. Yeah, like we saw this year on the AT, like, yeah, it was kind of out of our hands.
Yeah, no, this year was the year that I was actually like, okay, I want to do at least as much as last year. Like, that's what I started off with, because now I know that we can do that many, and then it ended up being way less. It's just kind of the way life goes.
Would you say between the AT and the PCT, one is more kid-friendly? I have my hunch, but I haven't done it, so I'd be curious to get your guys' take.
Definitely the AT. Yeah,
the
from what
AT.
we
Yeah.
saw at least.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Less water carries, more towns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just pure forest. It's just so nice.
Yeah.
You're always in a forest. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But also the Oregon section, on, like, if we're talking sections, like the
Yeah, for
Oregon
sure.
section might be
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah. But I do think the PCT personally is way harder than the AT. The AT is a lot of just up and down, which is hard.
Yeah.
But it's still, in my opinion, it's not near as hard. Maybe it's just my body type or whatever, my mentality, everything. And that's not like saying, like, if you do the AT, not the PCT, you're not as cool or you suck. Nothing like that. It's just like physically, in my personal opinion, I think the PCT is much harder. And yeah, the forest alone makes it so, like, welcoming on the AT. It's amazing. Amazing.
How do you handle the threat of deer tick on the AT? And I guess you probably didn't really even encounter that based on where you got on the trail.
Yeah, I think we got lucky because it's like before season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But was that something that you were preparing for?
We started talking about it.
Yeah, because we saw, one tick the whole time?
Yeah, one tick.
And yeah, that was definitely on my mind, and we were going to, of course, take steps.
Yeah.
Use some of that.
Our friend told us about this stuff you can, like, wash all your clothes in.
Yeah, the
Permethrin?
Permethrin,
Yeah, that's
We're-
probably it. Yeah.
We're big advocates of that, or
Okay.
especially me.
Okay.
I have a deer tick phobia, so yeah. I
Can't imagine getting Lyme. That would be horrible.
Yeah.
No.
Chance, I'm dominating the questions, obviously. It's
No, we've been
selfish.
taking turns. What's next? Because if you guys have been doing something after something after something, there must be something, right?
Right. I think next year, Marketa's convinced us, me, that we should go to Europe.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is this a hiking adventure, a travel adventure?
It's a mix.
gonna
I'm
be a mix,
envisioning like traveling Europe, like through hiker style. So we'll have our backpacks, basically the same setup.
Yep. Backpacks
And-
only.
And not make it necessarily about hiking, but yeah, lots of like outdoor time, sleeping outside, and yeah, I mean, I want the kids and David to meet my family.
Super excited.
I have an aunt in Holland, a friend in Sweden, so just visiting all these places. Yeah, hopefully it's as glamorous as it is in my head. I have no idea. It's probably going to be just as hard.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. Honestly, it sounds amazing. And I imagine in a year, the youngest is 4. Like, that's a big hurdle, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, for sure. I think my last question is there a non-obvious question in terms of getting people with kids out to do adventures that we haven't asked? Something that is listening to this that runs into the hurdle of not actually being able to pull the trigger and make it happen. Is there a piece of advice or a question that we could ask to elicit some deep insight?
I think the main thing that I always tell people is that you don't really need like the fancy gear. I feel like that's very discouraging for someone maybe starting out. All the very expensive stuff. I just
Yeah. And to start small, like 3 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile, 1 mile in, and then spend the afternoon there, and then spend the night, and then the morning hike out and start there. Like, and and you'll start to see how awesome it is. because you know how it is when you start hiking. It's like 5 miles seems like a lot, and you do 5, and you're like, oh, now I can do 10, and then it just keeps going. You never know, like when you actually hit your limit. Yeah.
Do the kids have their own quilts, or does everyone cuddle up? How does that work?
We cuddle. We had separate quilts, but they would just like kick them out and end up on the other side of the pads or the tent. So we just got the big quilts instead, 2 of them. Yeah.
And then you mentioned you use the Osprey. Is that the kid comfort? Is that what it is?
The what?
The Osprey kid carrier pack. Is that the?
Oh yeah. What is the name of it, Marketa?
Osprey Poco AG.
Oh, okay.
I think is the name.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, I'm horrible at remembering names.
Yeah,
so.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, this has been very enlightening. Thank you for making it happen. Like I said, you've been a highly requested family to have on the show. Did not disappoint. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for stopping by.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
guys. Yeah, appreciate it.
Impromptu segment of the year alert. Here we are. As I mentioned earlier, today is a special occasion as we have a Chuck Norris award-winning supporter of the podcast via Patreon, Greg McDaniel. Thank you so much for making the trip from Colorado Springs.
Yes.
Yeah. So I somewhat facetiously put out the offer, I don't know, was it a year ago, for one of our Patreon supporters to like just come and sit in on a podcast? Because I think it's more fun when it's not just us. And I think I probably said that during a remote recording.
I was going to say, I think we had like a burst of extroversion during whenever we said that.
It gets very dark in here during the winter recordings where we don't have people in the studio. So
windows.
Yeah. But I'm glad Greg can make it. He's a nice guy. This was a wild card, but he's not letting us down. So we've learned that you actually have a very interesting story. Let's start from the top, that you've been working in the military since you're 18 years old.
Yeah, I left in 1999, a few months after I graduated, like 3 months after I graduated high school, joined the Air Force. Really, I needed to get out of my town, basically. College wasn't for me. Drugs, alcohol at a young age.
What town was this?
Circleville, Ohio, so small town, about 25 minutes south of Columbus.
And what'd you do in the Air Force?
I'm an IT guy. Started as like crypto, working on cryptographic equipment, maintaining that, and then we merged into like small computers, and then eventually into like networks.
So crypto's different than Bitcoin, the other crypto.
Yes, like
the real crypto.
Yeah, the real crypto. I don't understand.
What's the
new
real crypto?
Like encrypting communications across on open channels. Yeah, secure communications. Yeah.
So I'm not very bright when it comes to military stuff. I just haven't had a lot of exposure. Do you like pick the Air Force, and how do you make that picking process? Or is it like Harry Potter where you get sorted into a house and it's like your Air Force?
You pick generally based on, like, you take an ASVAB, which is like an aptitude test and based on how you score, it opens up certain jobs and what you can pick. And the better you score, the more jobs you have, obviously, and then the higher you, like the Marines typically, no offense, Jabba, are the low end of the bracket. The Air Force is typically the higher end. And so the Air Force I'm like not super tough guy, so the Air Force seemed like the easiest. It had the shortest basic training. So I was like, yeah, I'll do, the Air Force sounds good. And I had some distant family that was in the Air Force that kind of like nudged me in that way.
I know the Air Force Academy itself is very competitive, right?
Very, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the other interesting thing to point out here is that you're retired.
Yeah, so I retired in 2019 after 20 years and 9 days.
And how old are you? Or how old are you when you retired?
38. I'm 41 now, so.
That's fucking awesome.
Like doing fire stuff? Do you know what fire?
I do know, yes. I did not do that. The benefit of the Air Force is when you do 20 years of active duty, you retire with a pension. So you have money coming in every month for the rest, as long as you are alive. So that helps.
Financial independence, retire early, just for those listening.
Yeah.
It's a movement.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I do continue to work. I'm just semi-retired.
Yeah.
So I
which is the perfect complement to the backpacking lifestyle, which you have recently taken up, which is awesome. So yeah, give us the walkthrough on the abbreviated resume so far.
Yeah, so 2019 I did the Colorado Trail, and then we did a Wind River high route attempt in 2021, I believe, and then just recent, like last week or 2 weeks ago, we did the Centennial Trail in South Dakota.
You mentioned attempt, which is consistent with my experience.
Yeah.
Why was it attempt and not a full hike?
I think we were overzealous because we had 7 days of food right from the go, and we were just going to try to send it. And then we got into day 2 coming down from in the West Gully, and my buddies didn't handle the exposure, and one of them was already kind of sick to begin with. She showed up kind of not feeling well, so we got behind schedule right away. So we decided we'll just go to the Cirque, hang out, have a relaxing trip, and then hike out in a couple of days.
Yeah. So did you make it down the gully?
Yeah.
How was that experience for you guys?
It was intense.
Yeah.
For sure. Like every step you took, you were sliding. Nothing was secure, really.
Did anyone have route hiking experience in your group?
No.
That's a big one to bite off for your first route.
Well, so there's 3 of us that always hike together. We've done a lot of stuff, and one of them is a geologist who has done a lot of field work. So he has compass experience, and like he knows topos and stuff like that. So he did have some, not necessarily off-trail hiking, but he's been off-trail doing field work. So he had the experience. Yeah.
Was there any thought, because I remember this, approaching the gully, that like to keep my morale high amongst the group with Jabba and Kookaburd was like, we'll get to the gully and then make the decision there, and if I want to turn around, we can. Was there any talk of that in your group?
I think so. I mean, I was confident. I've hiked at this point 32 14ers in Colorado, so I have some exposure experience. So I was pretty confident that I would be okay. My 2 friends are from Florida, so it was kind of a new experience for them. So it was kind of like, hey, we'll see, let's get there, find the right entry point, because that can be kind of confusing, and then just go from there. It was pretty evident, though, that we were, as we started going down, we weren't going to make it to the whole thing. And it was funny because we basically did 10 hours ago, not even like 8 miles, I think. And as we finish up, get down, like these 3, we call them long boys, like 6'2" guys,
Love
just
that.
skinny, just they come rocking through like, oh yeah, we started this morning, and they just had beat us, like just past us, just cruising on our day 2. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna make it, guys.
I couldn't imagine going from Florida to the Wind River high route. Like if you're standing on top of a Honda Civic in Florida, you're at the tallest object in the state. Like that's pretty intense. So shout out to your hiking partners, because that takes balls.
How did you, if my timelines in my mind are correct, went from retiring to backpacking pretty fast? Like there doesn't seem to be much of a time in there to catch the backpacking bug. How did you get introduced to long distance hiking? Because I feel like there's always some sort of catalyst that makes a person want to do this stuff.
Yeah, I had no interest whatsoever. I was athletic. We did a lot of sports and that stuff growing up, and then I can remember, I think we went camping once and got completely rained out. Like we went to go fish and came back and the tent was completely flooded out. So we're like, all right, guess that's that. And I can remember when I was living in Florida for 10 years, and a couple of buddies of mine were like, hey, let's go into the Ocala National Forest and we'll backpack in and like stay a couple nights. I was like, well, that sounds terrible. Like, because I'd only car camped at this point. Like that sounds terrible. And then so the catalyst really for backpacking was moving out here. In 2016, and then like some YouTube, Darwin and Dixie started to really gain popularity, and then a mile and a half came out around that time, and I was like, oh, that's different than backpacking in Florida. Like I'm in for that, for sure. And that's kind of where it started. And then we did a segment or a couple section hike on the Colorado Trail, and then I was like, I'm retiring in the summer of 2019. I'm doing the CT, and I talked to my 2 friends from Florida. I was like, you guys want to come? They're like, yeah, we're in. So that's how we got into it, really.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were hooked immediately after the CT?
I hated it.
Really?
So my trail name was Gramps on the CT because like
Your curmudgeon-y?
Well, yeah, I started as Pops because I was like the planner and like I had it all planned out. We're gonna go on the west, and like here's the first couple of days is how we're gonna do it, and like here's the food drops and all that stuff, and then so I started as pops, but as like the trail went along, like I had really bad tendonitis in my right leg, and so everything I was like swollen from my toes to my knee, and I just couldn't hardly walk. But I was like, I'm finishing this thing.
Yeah.
And so I graduated to Gramps because I could hardly move.
That's enough to suck the joy out of it.
Right.
But you finished the trail.
But finished it, yeah. And I was like, pretty sure I would never do it again. But you know how, like, I don't think that's uncommon.
No, it's
like
not.
a month later, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do it again.
Yeah.
So now we've been doing small things, and then hopefully next year, go on the CDT.
I want to jump back to where we started this fun segment, which is your career in the Air Force, because like for me, I'm very like, I don't like things that are violent. And we talked about this in a recent segment, how I only want to watch movies that are wholesome. Yeah. Right. Like, so for me, I rule that out as a career path for myself, just because I don't think I have like just like it in quotes. But we also get a lot of questions about people who want a backpack, and like the time, the availability for time, and the money are usually the two biggest impediments to being able to do it. So being able to do 20 years in a career and then retire and go do this stuff seems like a great solution to someone who wants that trajectory, that's trying to figure out how to make it happen. What are the pros and cons of going down that route?
Well, the pros obviously is the pension that comes, and it's changed a little bit since there's still a pension, but it's not as good as what I had. But they also do a 401k now, which they didn't do for when I was in, like some version of that. But the pension is obviously a big perk. So if you do the 20 years, and then while you're active, you get 30 days of vacation a year. So you can use that to do some of the small trips to really dip your toe and see if you like it. But the cons are like, I had to go to Iraq 3 times. I had to go to Korea for a year, which the Korea part was awesome. I enjoyed that, different culture. Mostly drank that year away.
What do you do when you're out there doing IT stuff? You said IT stuff, right?
Yeah,
okay.
IT stuff. So Air Force is pretty corporate compared to like an Army. So like I'm just an IT guy for corporation. That instead of like one building, I'm doing multiple buildings. But it's typically, for the most part, inside the wire, so I'm not like downrange, typically like in harm's way. So it's really corporate. Like they call us blue suiters for a reason, because it's more corporate than the Army.
Yeah.
It's obviously not corporate, but
yeah.
See, I know none of this. So even like the blue suiter stuff, you gotta talk to me as if it's my first time hearing it.
Same.
Yeah.
Explain what being in Iraq was like.
So I was there in 2004, 2008, and 2010. And I say this with, I was never, I'd never had to be in a firefight. So I don't really like to take a lot of glory in the fact that I just went to Iraq. It is, in 2004, even being inside the base or inside the wire, I think in 4 months that I was there, I think we had like 48 rocket attacks.
Whoa.
So they were shooting at you.
Yeah.
The likelihood of getting hit.
Yeah, it might not be that you're in active combat, but certainly more dangerous than sitting in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here. Yeah.
And I think just when you're in it, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. But if you've never been in it, it's a little bit bigger of a deal.
So are you hearing rockets landing near
absolutely.
you?
Sometimes.
Damn.
Like the closest one to me, it was close enough that the shrapnel landed on the roof of the building I was in, and you could hear it kind of sprinkling down.
Holy shit.
But the likelihood of you getting, because the base is a pretty big area, it's if you get hit, it's just your time, is how we always kind of looked at it. It's like, because it'd be so it's like being struck by lightning. Like,
yeah,
you would just have to walk to the right spot at the wrong time, essentially.
I was gonna say, how do you sleep at night? But like, how do you do anything, right? Like, if it's not like, I don't know, like it's not like having an animal come to your tent at night where it's just a nighttime thing. It's any time of the day.
The first few times is pretty intense, and you're like, and it's at the beginning of your tour, so it's like, oh, this is gonna be like, how are we gonna get to the end of this? Like, I'm probably going to die here. This is how you feel in the beginning. By the end, it's just like second nature. It doesn't even really register. And that's only over like a 4-month period of time. Now I'm sure that's completely different if I'm actually in combat.
Sure.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Do they do anything before you go out there to desensitize you to the noise? Like, would they like play you like rocket landing sounds so that when the first one happens while you're out there, you're not shitting your pants?
No, you just shit your pants for sure. Like sirens go off and then there's explosions. So it's like, and you may have been there for a day, or whatever. So it's a whole new world.
I know we were being facetious there, but do you have any good military shit pants stories?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah.
I would think if any place was going to have good shit your pants stories, it's
I'm sure
there's rockets.
I mean, I have buddies that, especially early parts of war, were like, in 2003, that went in. I was in Korea, so I missed that window. But like they talked about peeing in tubes, and like you just basically put a PVC pipe into the ground, and that's what everybody in your unit peed in for until it was filled, and then you went to the next hole and that type of stuff, and then you're burning shit and all that stuff.
To bring it back to backpacking, so you recently got off the Centennial Trail, which we talked about a little bit on the show. I think Pony did a pretty good episode on that, but it's been long enough that I would love for my memory to be refreshed, and you're, like I said, freshly off the trail, so you can give us the full rundown. Give us the start and end points, the distance, and kind of just like the quick fun facts.
Yeah, so we went northbound. So you start, I think it's Wind Cave National Park, I think. Noback Trailhead is where we start. And then you finish at Bear Butte, just like right outside of Sturgis. It was like 124 miles, but you got to hike back down from Bear Butte, which is a mile and 1.4 miles or whatever, so a little over 125 miles.
Did you go in the caves when you were at Wind Cave?
No, they're really like the caves down there because there's signs everywhere.
They're cool.
But, yeah.
I will say I've been in them. It was a cool tour. So like Wind Cave National Park, there's not much to do there, but like because everything's underground. They're caves. But if you go into the caves with one of their tours, it's cool because like there's all this different like boxwork and different types of like cave patterns that happen with like the ceiling and stuff. But like the entryways you have right now, like present day to get into the cave, like the tourist stuff didn't exist back then. So there's this like hole in the side of one of the caves that's like this big, and they'll show you like that's where Ansel Adams went down when he was exploring the caves, and you can't imagine dropping down into it.
Right.
And they'll turn the lights off when you're down there so you could see what it was like for when they got down. It's kind of wild. If you're going to go there, I would definitely recommend doing the tour.
So give us some of the highlights of the trip.
I mean, it is beautiful country. The people were friendly. I think it's an excellent trail if you're new to backpacking and you want to see if you would like through hiking, because you have self-service the majority of the trail. Every day you're going to find self-service. There's entry points to get picked up if like something goes wrong or you need gear changed or whatever. And it's a decent mileage, but it's something that everybody can do in 7 to 12 days. You
did in 6, right?
6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
And how many times did you resupply along the way?
Just once. We did. There's Whispering Pines Campground, which is if you're going to do the trail, stay there. The hosts were awesome. The guy named Harley and his wife, I think Lisa. But we got there in the morning we just did a Nero, and we're like, there's a place called the Sugar Shack, which does like burgers and has ice cream and stuff, like 3 miles down the road. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you guys down for lunch. So we had lunch with them.
That's cool.
And they're super friendly to hikers. We just sat in the like general store of the campground all day and just like charged phones and like talked and whatever. And then just their credit card system was down, so they just ran us tabs. And every time we'd walk into their food thing, it'd be like, hey, Greg's got a ice cream bar, or Greg's got a Gatorade, and they just add it to the list. Yeah.
Did it eventually come back online, or did you have to settle up, like send them?
Now that we're talking, I don't think they've charged my credit card yet, so I need to call them and make sure that gets squared away. But they have little cabins you can rent, or they have tent sites you can rent to stay there for a night and shower up and have laundry. And you can just drop a box off. We drove in Friday, dropped a box off, and then started Saturday morning.
That's cool. Are there multiple resupply opportunities, or is that like the one?
I mean, that's the one that I saw. I didn't do a lot of research into that. I just knew that was available. So that's what we went with, and it was short enough that we really didn't need to do more than that. Yeah. So there's no big towns. Like, that's the one thing, you're not going to really get a town day. We kind of made that our town day and like hit the sugar shack, and then we kind of did our own alternate. We hiked down the road to the sugar shack the next morning and had breakfast, and then connected the trail that way. So we kind of made it our town day. There's ways to get different. You cross roads a lot, so you could hitch different places. Like Nemo, South Dakota has a good restaurant. So, and then I just happened to have a friend that's still in the Air Force that's stationed in Grand Rapids. So she hooked us up. My buddy had terrible blisters because it rained every day, and she brought out a new pair of shoes for him. So it's.
How does the difficulty of the trail itself compare to something like the Colorado Trail?
It's definitely easier than the Colorado Trail. Just, I mean, in the 125 miles, I think it's about 24,000 feet of vert. So we were averaging between 2 and 4K a day, somewhere in there. So you were definitely getting some. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of exposed above on ridge where you're just kind of out, or like burn scars, a little bit of that. And then in the middle, there's a section where it's a lot of ATV trails and it just dumped on us. And then we were going down the ATV trail, and it was like a slip and slide. It was pretty brutal. But yeah.
To that point, so you did this in the latter half of May, right?
We did it. We started May 27th and finished June 2nd.
Okay. Would you recommend that time of the year to others?
I mean, it's going to rain on you, but as far as early season hikes, it's pretty like. There was water. We never really had to worry about water. That can be an issue sometimes, especially in the fall, if you do it in the fall. I think if you waited another week, you'd probably be okay with rain, but still have good water. And for the most part, it was kind of monsoon like Colorado. So I hike here all the time, so I'm used to that. It would come and then it'd be gone. But it was also, I have a lot of new gear, so it was a shakedown hike for me. So I was super thrilled to I got the new Dan Durston. Was it the mid pro or the 2 mid pro or 2 mid 2P pro?
The X mid.
The X mid, yeah. And so I wanted to see and it just bombed on us the first night, and I was like, a dead tree blew down like across the river from us.
The tent, you lost me on the bomb part. The tent didn't do well?
No, the tent did awesome. The weather bombed us, and like
that's the perfect way to test it.
Yeah, too. And it just was like fine.
Yeah.
And I was super happy to be tested that way.
Yeah.
What things did you bring on this shakedown hike that you left the shakedown hike knowing I don't need this for future stuff, or like modifications you made, anything that you learned?
Well, it was more so the new tent and a new pack.
Okay.
That I wanted to test out. Everything else is pretty tried and true. I've got it pretty honed in at this point. So I just wanted to test those two out because I've really just struggled with packs, finding one that it just fits right for me.
Walk me through your pack history.
I mean, I'm a gear junkie, so and I have some discretionary funds because I'm retired, so I just buy everything. But I started with the Z-Packs Arc Blast, and it hurt my shoulders. And then I got the Mariposa. I got it's the 42. It's the one below the 50, the Gorilla.
Oh, yeah.
It's the non-framed one.
G420.
Yeah. And I like that, but I just determined I like a frame better. So now I'm with Durston's. I'm a Durston snob, I guess. So his 40 liter, right, the 40 liter pack, and I loved it. Yeah.
I think my last question, this will be a fun one. So you're a supporter of the show. Thank you very much for your support. I'm going to put you in a weird position here. Give us your most critical piece of feedback for the podcast or us as hosts.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have critical feedback.
You got something in there.
No, I love it. Like your guys' interaction, because I've listened from the beginning. I started in 2020 at some point, but I started from 1 and went on. And your guys' interaction has just gotten so good between the two of you. You both have, I think, just grown tremendously as podcast hosts for sure. And that's what I get. I like the guests, obviously, but your guys' banter is just as good for me. Like, I love it.
That's very nice of you, but you failed at
getting
giving us criticism. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much.
Give us one hot take.
Hot take?
It doesn't have to be
one
about the
hot take.
podcast, but just a
But
spicy
preferably.
take that you've got, preferably about the podcast, maybe just backpacking, the
I mean,
culture in general.
your guys' chairs suck, for real.
Easy out.
We did almost break him.
Yeah.
The first interaction we had with him was
I
like,
told
sit
him we've
in
never
this
had guests.
broken chair.
Well, we've had guests, but
Yeah. No excuse.
yeah, okay, fine.
Well, Greg, thanks for
Oh,
doing
no,
this
thanks for
impromptu
having me. I
segment
love
with
it.
us. This was fun.
It's awesome.
Thank you again for your support via Patreon and for making the trek out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the trek propaganda portion of today's show. This one, the title, we'll let you know, as it always does. A woman was bitten by a bear on the AT last month. Here's what happened. This is by Bloodhound, who I think we featured on a recent trek propaganda as well. Shout out to Bloodhound. He's got the best knack of anyone that I've ever met on the trek or otherwise for finding these insane stories that happen on the AT. Very happy to have him on our team. I do want you to read this article. It's very good, so I'm going to be a little bit sparse with the details here. But what I will say is that the subject of this article was bit in the ass by the bear, legitimately.
Exiting a privy.
Yeah, and it happened so fast that she says she wasn't even afraid. She didn't have time to even conceptualize what was happening, therefore she wasn't afraid. She's also spared of the incident being potentially far worse by her fellow hikers. So you're only as strong as your community. A lot of bear stuff happening on the AT of late.
Yeah, bears are bearsing.
Yeah, I used to be, I hope the ATC's not listening, one of those who would kind of like poo-poo the idea of carrying a bear canister. But the more these stories come out, you make a very strong case for a bear canister being necessary.
I will also say, ATC, plug your ears. I have said on several occasions that East Coast bears are little bitches.
Yeah, it turns out they're leveling up their terrorism game.
But if she still has her ass,
She's got
it's a weak bite.
She's got most of her ass.
Do we know she lost a portion of her ass?
I don't think that detailed was outlined in the article.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up there.
Maybe she's like a little love nip.
Yeah.
A little hey.
Just getting a little kinky with the bear.
Hey. Forgot to wipe that spot.
just trying to toss a little Sal.
Yeah.
The other trek propaganda piece that I want to throw out there is we actually have a new editor, sort of. Kelly is taking a leave of absence. She's going to explore out in Europe for a half year.
She got sick of you that fast, huh?
Apparently. Yeah, no, she made me promise that she'd get her job back.
Did she wear a suit?
She should not wear a suit.
She should talk to me first.
And that's how good she is she presented this information at like 3 weeks before Jenna popped. So like I was pretty preoccupied with life circumstances.
Smart.
But she's so good that obviously I had to grant her the leave of absence. But very stoked on the person who is taking her place. Owen Eggenbrot, who I've featured on Trek Propaganda many times. He actually was a very popular blogger for us last year as he was hiking the Eastern Continental Divide Trail, the ECT, Eastern Continental Trail. I forget, one of those two. Triple Crowner, excellent writer, smart guy, good person. So we'll do our best to get him on the podcast as he's based out of Salida now.
He's got a great last name, Eggenbrot.
Yeah, I hope
Food
I'm
and
pronouncing
food.
it correctly. And I'm just going phonetically. Eigenbrot.
I was thinking EGG space AND space BRA.
Like making
However
an
you
omelet.
say brat. How do you spell brat?
BART.
Brat.
The Wisconsin in me knows that very well. Okay. We're scrapping stupidest thing of the week for Chauncey's new segment.
No. This is not a scrapping stupidest thing of the week. This is a either or. Like maybe sometimes when we don't have a stupidest thing of the week, we've had a thought.
You say
Just like a
tomato,
thought.
I say potato.
Okay, well this week we're not doing the stupidest thing. I feel like I did do something really freaking dumb this week though.
Go to the dentist?
No.
No,
Well, you say your thought and I'll try to remember what I
Okay.
did.
My thought of the week, and this is not the thought of the week. This is something that has been reoccurring for me for a long time. But I am of the belief that during the summer, every employee anywhere that works like the traditional 40-hour work week should have the option for a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
I think during the summer, you should have the option to take either Monday or Friday off. And just if you want to keep the same workload, which makes sense, good, just cram a few 10-hour days in there, 4 10-hour days, and get it done. But that's what at the Trek, I don't mandate that you work any specific day. So as long as you
Yeah.
get your shit done, take as much time off as you need. But
As a Monday to Friday employee, this would be great.
People are brain dead on Friday regardless. Like I know, because I now work basically all the time because I don't get to leave my house. I know when I send an email on a Friday, I'm definitely not hearing back until Monday. Nobody responds to email on Friday. It's like sending an email on like Christmas. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Fridays.
Yeah.
I've got so many thoughts.
Let's hear it.
I don't know if they're on air thoughts. Well, by the time this airs, a conclusion will be made, but I have a interview on Friday for a...
Am I allowed to offer more context?
I'm not going to offer much context yet because I'm really torn on what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Basically, a recruiter found me. There's a stupid high base pay that's very hard to say no to. It's hybrid where I would go in Mondays and Fridays and part day Tuesdays. And I'm just like, honestly, like, I have such a good setup right now where even if I'm not making as much, and even if sometimes it sucks and I bitch about it, the ability to have the flexibility to come do this at this time, to be able, like, just like the flexibility I have and the work from home setup, I never thought I would turn down a base pay as high as this one. I specifically withdrew my application earlier this week and said no.
7 figures, 8 figures?
I mean, I'm not going to say anything specific. 8 figures would be fantastic.
Yeah,
but
so it's only 7. Okay,
yeah, it's only 7.
Yeah.
But I withdrew my application at the beginning of the week because I was like, this seems like more in-person time than I was alluded to believe. Because they had both mentioned Tuesdays going in, and in the beginning I just knew Mondays and Fridays, and then I went on Glassdoor and I saw people say that it's fully in person, and I was like, I did not sign up for that. And then I talked to the recruiter and he was like, well, that's sales and ops, or not sales, that's tech and ops. They have to be in every day, but sales, you'll never see them in there on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's, remote, you can work from home. Tuesday afternoons you can work from home. Basically made it exactly what I thought it was in the beginning before I started thinking that it was too much in office time. And I'm just so torn going into this on Friday because being in an office on Friday from 8 to 5, I don't want to sound like a lazy piece of shit that doesn't want to be in an office working, and I also don't want to sound like I want to be at home so I can not work, right? Yeah. But there's something just so nice, there's no other way to put it but nice about not having to go into an office where I never knew until it was in front of me, you could put a base this high in front of me and I will likely still say no. It's because the quality of life would be different.
Yeah. Is there a part of you, I think I've spoken about this before, that misses the in-person setting?
No.
You don't get the doldrums when you're working from your bedroom day after day after day?
Yes, I do, but it's in comparison to what? I can go back into the office for my job right now. They encourage me to every day, and I laugh.
Yeah.
I don't like waking up early and having, here's the thing, is I'm not just, okay, you're paying me more, but then you're paying me to commute, and the cost of having to have an updated work wardrobe that is business professional, which would require purchases.
You couldn't go in looking like that?
No. And then
it's a nice
also hat. The time, if it starts at 8, I have to be in my desk at 8, which means that I have to leave my house probably by 7:15 at the latest to have any sort of not rushing vibe, which means that to get looking work appropriate by 7:15, I have to wake up at 6. I have to do my hair. I have to pick an outfit. I have to put on makeup.
To be in the office at 8, you have to wake up at 6?
To pick an outfit, to do my hair, to put on makeup, to get in my car. This is if I'm not rushed.
Do you have to do those things though?
You do.
Or is that just being self-conscious?
If I'm giving presentations to different companies on why they should use our service, I absolutely need to look business professional.
Yeah, but if you're in the office, are you doing the presentations, or is that just when you're working?
I just think that's corporate. You can't go in looking like a bag of shit, which is that's my preferred look, is bag of shit.
Same.
And then the day ends and you've had no free time because you've been surveilled all day, and then you have to commute home, and then you're tired and you sit there, and it's just an absolutely different life than the one I'm in. And even the idea of adding that on Mondays and Fridays, I just don't know if it's worth the extra money.
Yeah. I very much understand what you're saying.
But it's hard because it's I don't want to not, I was torn about withdrawing my application because this is the final stage of the interview. I go in and I've got feelings on this where it's 4 hours basically unpaid work at their office to meet the team, to get a feel for what it's like working there. I understand the merits of it. I also understand that I'm being not paid for 4 hours of work. So
that's aggressive.
There's pros and cons to that, but I understand giving it that before making a decision, because maybe I love the team, maybe I love the work atmosphere, maybe I love maybe I love it.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, if I pull out before I do that, then I'm always going to be like, well, what if? And then the other part of me is like, I don't want to waste their time if I'm already like this certain that I'm like, it's just too good to leave. Mm-hmm. But then the other part of me is like, well, I don't know.
Have you had that truth to God moment? The offer is on the table. You've done the walkthrough with your company.
I've played it out in my head. Like this is all I've been thinking of this week.
And you know what your answer would be?
No, and that's the problem. I think realistically, and people would probably give mixed opinions on this if they didn't know who my director is at my work. But realistically, I think if this is something that I end up genuinely considering doing, what's gonna have to happen before I even accept it is I'm probably gonna meet with my director and like walk her through the why I feel like, because part of me is like, maybe I just don't want to do this because I'm scared. Maybe I'm comfortable and it's convenient and it's easy, and I just don't want to put myself in a position where it might be something that's not comfortable and convenient. And so like that's the devil's advocate, but I think I would meet with my director and tell her, like, have that conversation about, these are all the reasons I don't want to do it and want to stay. These are the reasons I'm afraid I would regret not trying it. And should I try it and I not like it, is there a possibility of me coming back? And I think I would need to have that conversation, even if the answer is no.
Yeah.
Just to be able to make that decision with any sort of clarity. And I also know her well enough where it wouldn't be like a weird conversation.
Yeah.
Like I very much think I very much think, and this is what makes it hard, I very much think she prioritizes us as people over employees.
Sure.
And so I think she would be absolutely objective on it and give me good advice.
That's a tough ask, as I consider myself to be a very lenient employer. I'm giving Kelly 7 months off. You're welcome. But if someone came to me and was like, hey, can I take this other job, and if it sucks, can I come back?
Right.
It's kind of like your significant other being like, can I bone this other person? And if it's less fun than boning you, come back. And
it sounds really weird when I say it, but we have people come back to this role all the time. Because it's one of those
Maybe
rules.
that's the nature of just a huge corporation.
Well, it's one of those rules where if I stand up for my job, this is why I can go hiking. If I stand up from my desk, someone else is able to sit back down.
Have you inquired about the flexibility to do things like hikes and potential road trips to potential places that are cool later this year?
I've talked about it to an extent, but that ultimately will be...
So are we replacing you?
No,
is that what you're saying?
Not replacing me.
Greg, what are you doing
It's
later
ultimately
this year?
going to be part of like this, but that's like I want to know that they want me first. Like you can't be like, so what's my PTO like, before you even know that they actually want you.
Yeah.
Right. Like I need an offer first, and then once they make that offer, is like, okay, well, let's negotiate the nitty gritty. What does this look like? What does that look like? But I'm in the thick of it all right now, and it is very stressful. I don't know what segment this is that we're doing, but it's stress in Chauncey's
career
life.
counseling with Chauncey.
It's really
the
hard,
CCC.
and like it is really hard because, and when this episode airs, I will have made a decision either way. So that's why I don't mind.
What do you want to tell future Chauncey right now?
I don't know. I think
just say something nice. Be nice to future Chauncey.
I think
'Cause I
neither
can't do
answer
it.
is a bad answer. I think neither choice is the wrong choice. I think like both have merits, and I think that that's what makes it so hard. Is if I didn't really enjoy where I was right now, it wouldn't be hard to leave. And if I didn't also really enjoy challenging myself and trying new things, I wouldn't care about wanting to give it a shot when I wasn't even looking. You know, like this recruiter found me and texted me.
I know that this segment seems unprepared, but I actually reached out to HR to give their take.
Oh, did you? What'd they say?
Oh, wait, hold on.
Chance,
Yo
bag.
I don't know. So yeah, hopefully when this airs, I'll be in a lot better of a space mentally, but I really don't think either company is listening this far into the episode. I know there's people at my job that listen to this. If this is you and you are someone at my job that listens to this, keep this between friends.
Yeah. I think what you're going through is a very relatable
It's really
crisis.
hard. I don't like change. I don't do well with change.
Not to feed the fear of change, but sometimes the grass looks greener
Right.
And then you get there and the
And
lawn
it's
is
not.
dog shit.
Or
Yeah.
sometimes you say no, and then your job comes out and they're like, actually, we're moving everyone back to the office. Like, what if that were to happen?
Yeah.
And, like, what if I don't take it and then, like, this episode airs and I regret having stayed?
Yeah.
You just never know.
You don't
It's
know.
one of those situations where there's no wrong answer, so you could find reasons to make either the wrong answer. So I'm very stressed right now.
Yeah. Well, it sounds stressful and sucks to be you. So
Yes,
let's
it
go on to our
does. So
next segment.
good for you for thinking that people should have 4-day weekdays.
Yeah.
As
You still haven't given your
sit
thought
from
of the
home and
week,
work
have
for
you?
yourself. I think
I
I think I gave a lot of thoughts for this week right there.
Yeah. Are you tapping out after
I
that
gave a
one?
lot of thoughts.
Okay. Fair.
It wasn't what I planned, but
'Kay.
now you guys know.
This is a rare contribution from me. This is the Triple Crown of compliments that are uniquely for backpackers. And this, the first example that I'm going to give is the whole onus for this thing,
Sure.
because this is not a compliment that you get in any other realm.
Sure.
So I'll kick it off because I know that you were struggling to come up with examples. So I think this might spur some ideas for you. But the fuck did it go? Oh, here we go. Scroll down. So this was on the long trail. I was hiking with an older gentleman for about a half a day, and he said something to me that I've never heard before, and it made me feel really good. He said, "You have really good step selection."
That is a compliment.
And
I'd be really, really happy if someone said that
yeah,
to me.
I felt awesome. It's like the best I felt in probably the whole year. And I knew exactly what he meant. I didn't think that about myself, which is a good form of a compliment. Like, you're boosting someone's ego in a way that they didn't have that confidence. And thanks to that old guy, I can't remember his name, but shout out to you.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Like, compliments for me when I'm doing this is a loose word for, like, kudos, snaps, like any kind of
So you're going to like phrases.
praise of any sort.
'Kay.
Praise that you would give, or like general excitement towards backpackers. And my first one will be any sort of commentary on the poor condition of their feet, like a huge blister, and you're like, right on, or it's like a toenail's falling off, or like,
And someone's like, that's a good one.
yeah, like that's it, like, oh, that's like your toenail's black, like
Yeah.
that's a she's ripe, you know. Or like you get a big like ball flap. We named him ball flap because he had a blister on the ball of his foot that flapped.
Yeah.
You know, like no one in regular life is talking about your, and I'm not talking like plantar fasciitis, but I'm talking about like mild foot concerns
Yeah.
in a like almost braggy positive way.
Yeah. Praise for the physical oddities that are a result of your backpacking.
Yes.
Okay. I'll count it.
Oh, I get it too. Second one. This is another kudos type thing, but the praise someone gets for accomplishments that would otherwise be considered incredibly unhygienic in normal life. For example, one time when I was really, really tired on a trail, I think I went 17 days without a shower, which was due to the fact that I just prioritized sleep every time I had the time.
Just quick aside. I think you've given that stat before.
I have. I'm really proud of it.
You should be. I want somebody who has gone longer, specifically a
tell us.
backpacker, to
Yeah.
either email or leave us a voicemail giving us your shower record.
But see, if I ever told anyone in real life that I'm proud of that, like, there's concern. There's,
Yeah.
like, possible interventions, circles forming. There's weird looks. There's, like,
Wait,
an awkward
so
laugh.
Did you receive a compliment, or are you just patting yourself on the back for this?
No, I think people, like, I think throughout time, like, people have been like, whoa, like, that's a lot. But
Yeah.
not in, like, a concerned, whoa, that's a lot.
Right.
You
it's
know?
a positive reaction.
More of, like, an impressed,
Yeah.
which,
Paradoxically positive
like,
reaction.
like, not an I would do that too, but, like, I'm more impressed by the duration you made it than disgusted by the state you were likely in.
Yeah.
Because we know we go back out there and we get instantly dirty again.
Yeah. It reminds me, my girlfriend in high school watched, I think, like a Oprah episode or like one of those daytime interview shows, and the person being interviewed said that like the health of their hair was immaculate, going 30 days without washing their hair. And I didn't watch the segment at all, but I took that as a challenge to go 30 days without washing my hair, thinking like it would be like flowy and shiny and gorgeous. It just got greasy and disgusting as all hell.
Well, that's probably because you're used to washing your hair very frequently.
Yeah. Every time I go into a haircut now, they're always like, your hair is dry and terrible.
Yeah,
and
you're
I
supposed
hate
to
you.
technically wash your hair like every few days, and people that wash their hair every day, their like scalp starts to overproduce oils because it's constantly trying to, like, you're stripping it of oils, and every time you do that, it's making oils to replace it with.
We should do a Chauncey hair segment. Because
Well-
one compliment that you have to lean into is you get compliments about your hair nonstop.
We also have several photos with past guests from interviews in the most previous weeks, and the last time I've washed my hair is before those. Like, I'll go
Can
easily.
Greg smell your hair?
Yeah, what do you think? Here.
Smells like hair, I guess.
Nice.
Touch it. Tell me if it's greasy.
Ooh.
No.
So the less you wash it, the more your scalp starts to regulate the oils it produces.
Yeah.
The less oils it produces, the less oily your hair gets. So that's why people that do like apple cider vinegar on their hair instead of shampoo and stuff like that don't get greasy hair.
Do you do ACV?
No.
No.
I just don't wash it. My hair is really thick, so if I wash it,
Do you get it wet when you shower?
I have a shower cap. I'm a
Really?
big shower cap girl.
Can you send in a photo of you in the shower cap?
No, I look like an alien.
Yeah, that's
Because
why.
I have so much hair that when I put it in a bun on the top of my head, it makes like a cone.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like a cone head.
Conehead, yeah. You've seen the movie, right?
But my hair is so thick though that it takes forever to dry. It's just like a process. So it's easier to not wash it frequently, and
Yeah.
as such, it doesn't get greasy as frequently. So
There's
I don't
a
need to.
big divide between a guy shower and a girl shower.
Huge.
Like, guys are like, they have one soap for their testicles to their hair. It's all the same thing. I use Bronner's. And yeah, I've never once thought about like a shampooing schedule. It's like, have I worked out? Soap. The one soap goes in all parts of my body.
Yeah, there's the regular shower, which is the wash, just general washing of yourself, and then there's the chores shower, which is washing your hair, shaving your legs, shaving your armpit, shaving your hoo-ha, like doing all the different just tasks.
Yeah.
And you leave it exhausted.
Yeah. Jenna's showers range in length to the extent that, like, I would guess that she's a teenage boy or like she's in a hurry. Those are the ranges I'll give, and you can probably discern the context from that.
I just breathed weird.
Yeah, that'll happen. So those are your two, right?
I think.
Yeah, you did hair and foot
Yes.
blister stuff.
This one's low-hanging fruit. I would.
Wait, you get two. You just did your two.
Oh
My-
yeah, you're
my
right.
turn.
Okay, I forgot who started.
No, I get two.
You get two.
You have to sit on the sideline.
I'm
for a
glad you
second.
said that before I said it.
So this is not a compliment that I've gotten, but this was actually spurred by, I think, a post that Leah put out today, and I saw that you liked it, so I think you know what I'm talking about. But if somebody said to you, you pitch a stiff tent,
I'm thinking about the post.
yeah,
I don't remember. Sometimes I just like things when I see the name.
okay.
Um,
A concession that you're not actually consuming their content, just being like a vote for you as a person.
it's like solidarity,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like
well, I
I'm
like
all for
Leah enough
whatever
that
it
I
is you
actually
made.
consumed her content. But
yeah, stiff tent. I've never gotten that one. I don't think I ever will.
well, I'll give the context because she did a video of her, I think, like Z-Pac's duplex at a nice campground, and it was the saddest tent setup I've ever seen, like completely sagging in the middle. And by the way, everyone that has a trekking pole tent that hasn't like practiced many times is going to go through that stage, myself included, so I'm not throwing shade. But it was a terrible tent pitch. So I think conversely...
Did she acknowledge that, or are you making fun of me
No, I
for not
think-
watching her content and then saying how sad her pitch was?
I think she acknowledged that.
Oh, okay.
I think she even apologized to Z-Packs.
Oh, okay.
But the more you do this, the better you get at getting things nice and taut. And I think somebody acknowledging how taut your tent is would be an ultimate backpacker compliment.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly have never gotten the compliment. I'm sure I would receive it with much joy should it ever come genuinely.
Yeah. That is a hard thing to perfect. And I think some of my anal tendencies with that, and I'm not touting myself to be the perfect tent pincher by any stretch, but like backpacking with Jabba, for as sloppy as a person as he comes across, like those sorts of things he's very type A about. So I think being around him definitely rubbed off on me. And yeah, I pride myself in a good tent pitcher nowadays.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, but I could see that.
Yeah. I do have a couple of honorable mentions that I'm going to have to get to, but I love this one.
Good self-praise.
Yeah. If you've spent a lot of days on trail, especially in areas where water can be somewhat tricky, I think you'll understand this one. But you've got good water capture technique. Because there are some of those streams where the flow is so slow.
Is this a trait, or does someone actually compliment you on this?
No, I've never received this compliment. But this could be a very reasonable compliment to give someone. There are certain streams where the flow is so slow, and sometimes depending on the device that you're using to capture water, like if you're using a smart water bottle, the opening is a couple, maybe an inch and a half above where the bottle touches the ground. So like unless the water is high enough, you're not actually going to be able to get the water. And if you haven't spent a lot of time actually retrieving water, this can be a thing that causes a great amount of struggle. But if you put two people at the same water source with the same water capturing technology, and one person has a lot of backpacking experience, the other one's kind of a noob, I guarantee you the person with a lot of backpacking experience is going to get their liter of water much faster. So the ability to capture water, whether that's runoff from a rock, sometimes you have to set up a leaf to give yourself a little bit of a waterfall situation. But there are certain tips and tricks that you can do in order to get to your liter much faster. And I think somebody recognizing that would be the ultimate backpacker compliment.
I would say that. I could agree with that. My last one's different than what it was before when I thought it was my turn, but it's not.
Okay.
I was between two. This one is going to be complimenting their food in terms of like one time on the PCT we hiked with this guy named Chef, and he was chef because he brought out like fresh foods, like made salads at lunch, like did some crazy shit. But like anytime you see someone on trail who's got a really good meal, like you say something. Whereas anytime I go to a friend's house, I don't open their fridge and be like, whoa, really good grocery haul this week.
Yeah.
You did really good on the groceries.
Nice
like,
asparagus.
Are you having shrimp for dinner tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like what are these kebab? You're not doing that.
That arugula is fresh as fuck,
But
bro.
you get to camp and you see someone laid out their food bag because they're trying to like pick what they want for dinner, and you're like, are those Swedish fish? Like you're starting to ogle what they got.
What's the most complimentary thing that you've given somebody, or like the snack or meal setup that you've witnessed that's like most envy inducing?
It's always fresh food. Like with Chef, the reason I remember him, I mean, it was 6 years ago that we did the PCT at this point. And I remember he had like a lettuce, like not just chopped lettuce, but like a lettuce leaf. And he was putting things in it like a little boat. And I still remember that visual of like, you can do that? And he was like, why wouldn't you be able to do that? And me, a noob, was just not, I didn't realize you could take things from off trail and transport them to on trail.
Yeah.
And seeing him do that was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, lettuce is an oddball for backpacking, because in a normal context where you're like trying to watch your figure and get a little bit of nutrients, lettuce is awesome. But lettuce is just water and fiber. Like, it has no calorie content at all. So to use that in backpacking, you must really love the presentation of food.
He was either vegetarian or vegan, I will say that. But he just the creativity with his meals was something that was admirable, because you have to have a certain amount of brain function to be that creative in a store, whereas I was just tired and in pain.
True.
And so there's the thought, like, it was more than the meal, it was the thought of like getting to that meal.
Yeah.
And just like the energy he must have had to even brain that out.
Yeah. Yeah. We should get a guest who can level up our just dirtbag backpacking food hacks, because like the few that I have are kind of played out at this point. Like I usually haul out the frozen burritos, like a good rice, bean,
That's
and
a good one.
cheese, because by the time that you get it on trail, it's no longer frozen. Stuff like that. Somebody that can enlighten us.
Yeah, if you're a food hacker, a trail food hacker,
Yeah.
leave us a voicemail with your best concoctions.
Yeah. The two honorable mentions that I've got here is great hitch presentation, because people who are new to this, I think, lack the confidence necessary to really put themselves out there. Like someone who's standing out by the road and like lazily putting their thumb out and not making any eye contact is going to take 10 times as long as somebody that goes out there with some confidence, shows a little leg, guy or girl, I don't care.
I would argue it's not as much confidence as it is a lack of humility. Like, I'm not going out there confident AF. I'm going out there with no fucks left to give. I have nothing to lose here. You know, like, I'm not confident in my presentation here. I just don't give a fuck what you think of me.
Yeah. Two sides of the same coin, I think. It might be perceived as confidence.
Right.
But, yeah, same thing.
At the core, it's a lack of cares.
But
yes.
I've noticed this even in myself. Like, sometimes where I feel like, would I pick me up right now? And I step up my game a little bit, and the ride comes a little bit quicker.
Give him the razzle dazzle.
Exactly. Pull it up. The last one I'll give is sexy gait. Some people
Have you gotten that?
No, definitely not.
I haven't gotten that.
I've gotten one of these, by the way.
If someone came up to me in the backcountry and was like, "You've got a sexy gait," I would be fucking out of there.
Right.
And I'd also be filing like a report.
I think you have the prerequisite for this compliment is you have to have zero sexual attraction to the person that you're giving this compliment to.
And they have to know that.
Yeah.
So they have to know you well enough to know that.
Yeah, so you have to first lead with an insult. Start with an insult being like, I find you sexually attractive 0%, but you're gay.
Even that in the first convo was a little coming on strong. Like, you'd have to make friends with them first. If you notice someone with a sexy gait, become their friend first. Get close to them. Get to know them. But then give them an anti-compliment in terms of, you're ugly.
Yeah.
And then, one day, when they expect nothing of you, tell them they got a sexy gait.
Yeah. It sounds like a hollow phrase, but I actually think that there's meaning. Like, because there are the people out there who you can tell just lack athletic hand-eye coordination and are like stumbly with their steps. There's certain people who have like a little too much up and down in their gait,
like a gallop, like a horse gallop.
Exactly. Which all these styles of walking are great. As long as you're on trail, you're doing well. But some people just make it look good.
Yeah, and I think the important thing here is when you, like, the use of the word sexy is not sexy. Like
no, I mean
not,
sexy.
I don't interpret it as sexy. I interpret it as like smooth, like you like in a like charisma type of way. Like you've got like like if someone's got swag, you know, like they've like you've got a sexy gait, like it just looks good.
Yeah, I mean
not in like I want to bone you way.
There are foods that I think are sexy, and I don't want to have sex with a food.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is you're comparing them to food.
Yeah.
In this terminology, where you're not
smooth.
It's not a sexy gait in terms of you want to just take them to their tent and
no. I would have intercourse with the style of walking, but not the person.
Yeah, that's very strange.
These are fun compliments to get people in the backcountry.
My bonus one is mentioning how light their gear is, like their pack, how light your pack is. Because I have never walked in here with my Mary Poppins bag and had you pick it up and compliment me on how light it is today. Like my Mondo purse, I keep all my things in. You've never been like, wow, that's super light today.
Is it light?
No.
Yeah.
But you've never even, there's no world where you would, even if it was light. Like, even if I came in with just the fanny pack, you're not being like, wow, you're ultralight today. Like, you did a really good job packing that purse. You really only took the essentials.
Yeah.
You got 2 books in there.
Right.
You know?
Would you want this compliment on bags that are not your backpack?
No. I mean, like, I don't need this in real life. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me. But you would, it's compliments that are specifically given to backpackers.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not one you give to a non-backpacker.
Right. Okay. Good job.
Thanks.
I think we stuck the landing there a little bit. Greg, was that okay?
Yeah, good.
All right. Thumbs up.
2 thumbs.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. You want to take the mailbag?
Sure. Hello, Badger and Chance.
Bifocals on.
My name is Android, and I'm currently hiking the PCT. I just listened to the episode where Chance hiked the Ozark Highlands Trail, where she shared that waterproof socks didn't really work. I'm going to never see the end of this. Didn't really work in the way she hoped. Here's the thing is, I am not a realist. I hope too much. I have high expectations. I expect too much. Anyway, I used waterproof socks to hike a little bit of the Sierra this year and wanted to share my experience. As everyone knows, there is a ton of snow in the Sierra this year, and I was really worried about my feet being really cold during 2 a.m. starts. So, I bought a pair of waterproof socks, but didn't really expect much. I was actually really impressed with how they worked and wanted to share my system. I remember this email. I like this email. I carried 4 pairs of socks. 1 pair of sleeping socks, 1 pair of waterproof socks, and 2 pairs of regular hiking socks. Every morning I put on my waterproof socks. Even though my shoes were wet from the day before and it was really cold out, my feet stayed warm. At lunch, I would feel my feet starting to sweat, so I would take off my waterproof socks and put on a pair of regular hiking socks. I then turned my waterproof socks inside out and put them on the top of my pack to dry while I hiked. I found they dried pretty well during this time. My feet would get wet in the afternoon, but it was usually sunny enough that they wouldn't get cold. The next day, I put my now dry waterproof socks back on and left the socks I'd worn in the afternoon before to dry on my pack. At lunch, I would put on my second pair of hiking socks. The next day, they would dry on my pack. So every afternoon, I had 1 pair of hiking socks and my waterproof socks drying on my pack. I found this actually worked really well for me. My feet still got wet, but they didn't get cold, and I never had to put on wet socks. One of the worst feelings. Anyway, just wanted to share this in case it helps somebody. Thank you guys for keeping me company on my hike. Android.
I think that's a good use case for something that you posited did not work.
I'll say in my defense, not everyone does everything perfect the first time. And a lot of backpacking is learning as you go. And I think it's very humanizing to see us 5 years into this still fucking up every day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe for me, putting on waterproof socks and expecting to go through rivers up to my hips and coming out with dry feet was a stretch. But also kudos to me for, expecting the most out of things and getting humbled. But I also think all of the responses it's soliciting in terms of how wrong I am is also really good advice on how to use waterproof socks in ways that I hadn't considered waterproof socks being for preventing cold. That just it didn't cross my mind. Waterproof is proof against water, not cold. So these are things that I never would have thought of that now I'm thinking of that make so much sense. And I'm just glad we get to use my little F up to share nice things with the world.
Yeah, isn't it nice to fail very publicly?
Yes, it's always a treat.
Good. Thank you to Android. Always like to hear from listeners how Chance has gotten things wrong.
Yes. Well, let's continue the roast.
Yeah, I'll take this one. 5-star review. This is from DIWKCJEO. And podcast review shout out, 5 stars. Been a long time religious listener and just wanted to say I love this podcast. If you had $1 for every time Tron said you'd have enough to host another Badger sponsorship. Laugh cry emoji. That's from Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Listeners, if you want to...
Are you sufficiently self-conscious now?
No, I beat myself about this up. I beat myself up about this regularly, so this is not bad.
Yeah,
it's reinforcing my own self-consciousness.
No, the times where I had to edit the podcast made me extraordinarily self-conscious about my vocal tics, so I'm glad that I don't ever have to listen to this podcast again.
For me, it's the likes and the ums. Very aware of those. Fuck, there it goes again. It's the likes and the ums, and it's also sometimes when I'm nervous, I talk really fast. So sometimes I listen to, I think it was the start of Little Skittles. I was looking for a reference to something. It was when we called her Small M&M. I couldn't remember if we did that on air or off air.
Yeah.
And so I started listening and I was speed talking.
Yeah.
I was talking really fast and then I got ashamed and I turned it off.
Most of the time when I redo ad reads, it's because I'm going at like a mile per minute.
Yeah.
Just trying to get it done.
I kind of black out during these.
Yeah.
And then I come to after and I can't remember anything.
You're like, that was probably terrible. Well, let's go home and have dinner.
Yeah.
Nice.
No need to dwell. So yeah, Sean, I'm aware of it. It's we beat ourselves up every day for our flaws.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
But we're true to our word. If you leave a 5-star review and
We
you're
will read
roasting
it.
somebody that's not a guest, we will read it.
Hey, I'm open to criticism.
Yeah.
Chance
loves criticism.
What training did I have for this?
Yeah. You didn't go to podcast school?
I didn't.
Oh.
I have a degree in broadcasting, though, so I really should be better.
I assume podcasting was not one of the courses.
It was
at the
not.
time. Yeah, I'm sure that
It
didn't
was
exist.
not.
Sticker code.
Based on how good the interview was, it's going to be hard to pick just one moment to choose a sticker code from. What do you think was your favorite standout part?
I think we should fire Chance.
Okay.
Not from the podcast, but given your career crisis, it'd be fun just to fire you.
Yeah, and then if that pops up on anyone employing me's feed, they can look further into it and I can get to meet with HR.
Yeah.
Yay.
Do you think that'll happen? People will notice all the comments of you getting fired and being like, I better listen to that podcast. And then you're like, fuck my job, fuck this new job, fuck the world.
So I didn't say it like that. I would like to go on record to say I did not say it like that. I also think the day I let my guard down and think that that's not possible is the day that that will happen.
Yeah.
So I like to live my life a little stitious.
Just a little stitious.
Yeah. No, a little suspicious.
Oh.
Suspicious.
Ah.
Suspicious that it might happen.
Got it.
Insert a word that fits.
Yeah.
It's possible.
There you go.
When I think it's not possible, it'll happen, and
Yeah.
it'll catch me by surprise, and I'll be very upset.
Good. Thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners. We got one here in the studio today. I'm going to go in alphabetical order based on the website. Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Christopher Marshburn, Dane,
Ish.
Derek Koch. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not on my list.
I think it's Koch, like the Koch brothers, which is not.
Koch?
Yeah, that's
Koch.
phonetically, I think that's right.
I have no idea.
Koch. I'm gonna go with Koch. Derek
Okay.
Koch. Do Good Pantry. Greg McDaniel. Liz Seeger, Matt Sukup, Mike Poisel, Patrick Ciancialo, Sawyer Products, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
Tracy Trigger Fonz. And that's it. I don't know. I said didn't give that in like a this is the end of the list sort of invitation. I should have. Tracy Trigger. There we go. You can follow us at Backpacker Radio on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok's still happening.
Still happening.
I've been Nostradamusing the end of that for a long time, and it just aside from Montana, it's not happening.
Yeah.
There's too much happening in the world. People are not upset.
Yeah.
You know, at Backpacker Pod on Twitter, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Greg. You're going to have to scream because your mic's not on.
outside_Greg.
Outside_Greg for Greg. You can follow Johns.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey, or you can get my book Hiking from Home, a long distance hiking guide for family and friends on Amazon.
Appalachian Trails and Pacific Crest Trails if you're into either of those trails. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts. Follow us on YouTube. We now have really good thumbnails for our interviews.
Honestly, Mara did it again.
Yeah.
I didn't.
You think it's all the
expect-
firing that gets her really revved up?
Really revved, yeah. She said, well, here's what you don't know is our one-on-one combos. She sent me 4 options, and the 3 later options were later than the first option. The first option, I was like, there's no way it gets better than this. The option we went with was option 4. I was at the grocery store in between option 1 and 2, 3, and 4, and I was like, there's just like, what could she do when she's saying she has other options that could be better? And she sent that, and I was like, well, damn.
Yeah.
So again, you live to see another day, Mara.
Yep. But yeah, good stuff happening on YouTube. If you like to watch podcasts, hey, wave to YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.